to member.
No, that's my job. You're supposed to do the countdown, and then I say, welcome to Plat Chat, episode 89, presented by T-Mobile.
Oh.
You say welcome to member when someone becomes a member. He doesn't get it.
Welcome to member.
He doesn't get it. He hasn't been... He's like a boomer trying to understand the kids and the hip new trends.
So many people tweeted me, like, oh, why are you going to get rid of the channel? There's so many members. Welcome to member, welcome to member. I was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? And then I turn on the stream and I see you guys just beating up watermelons. And I mean, I was like, the hell's happening?
Yeah. See, that's what would happen if Overwatch League allowed us to co-stream.
We made a cult.
Tournaments.
We made a
Which would
cult.
be very difficult because we work on the show. So I don't know who would actually be here.
I mean, it'd be me.
Yeah,
it would just be me. It would be me doing my own stream.
Let us know in the comments. Do you guys want to be charged money to watch Avast, Kurt, and Wyatt talk about Overwatch?
Well, first of all, you can already do that for me, so you don't need Plat Chat for that one. So that's fine.
No. You need Plat Chat. You can't get it anywhere else. Nowhere else.
It's impossible. Avast, how has your week been here?
It's been a bender. It's been a bender here, honestly. Legitimately, I don't know how you and Bren live, just like as people.
I feel good today.
Today you do.
I feel
but
good.
The point being is that the other night we've gone to bed now 2 nights in a row at 4 a.m. After a copious amount of alcohol.
No. We've been watching APAC VODs until 4 a.m.
Until 4 a.m.
And
then we were sitting there having a couple drinks back. I have to really be prepared for the cast tomorrow. Is what we were thinking.
Yeah, we were like, damn, this Reaper Hog comp from Seoul is really
And then we hit
really
midnight,
good.
and Josh said, guys, I have to wake up to cast tomorrow. I need to go to bed. And I said, okay, good night, Josh.
Exactly.
And so it was just me staying up till 4 a.m. with Wyatt.
Yep.
And there's just been so much alcohol in my system that I feel like I've just been flushed out. Like
Did you genuinely get shit-faced every day at the fucking...
Not every day. No.
No.
It was like 3 days, but then the thing is also still every night there was alcohol consumption. It just wasn't shit-faced.
It's a small little, tipple before bed. It's not
tipple.
He just said he was flushed out. That doesn't sound like a tipple.
Well, it's just because of the fact that I'm not used to being sterilized like a medical instrument.
I told him not to do that Guinness enema, and he just did it anyway. He just did it anyway.
Not used to it.
Yeah, we went on a trek last night though, because we just again, it wasn't a bender. We just went out and we were just checking out a new area of the city. And we were attempting to walk at the end of the night to try and find a pizza place because we, desperately wanted some kind of
because you drank and you need greasy pizza. Yeah,
exactly. I want some greasy food at the end of the night. And Bren, bless his heart, he's not on the show anymore, and he is also.
I don't know if he's in the realm of the living anymore.
I don't
currently.
know. I'm not sure either.
What's wrong with him.
But he is the false prophet on a pilgrimage to pizza. He led us in all the wrong directions. He had no idea where he was going. When we finally arrived at a pizza place, it had already closed, and it was 3 a.m., and we couldn't get any pizza. And I was robbed of that satisfying conclusion to my night. And you know why he wasn't able to find the pizza place?
Why?
Because he's a moron, and he had forgotten to trust in T-Mobile. T-Mobile, if he had that phone with T-Mobile on it, he could have looked at his GPS and waddled his way over and seen what time everything closed. It is a portal to knowledge. That's what T-Mobile offers you. A mobile portal to knowledge, all the knowledge in the world. And also, I mean, possibly...
And pizza.
And also pizza sometimes as well.
Yeah.
T-Mobile wants to be the best in the world at connecting people to their world.
True.
With so much of our lives these days happening through a wireless connection, nothing but the best will do. You hear that? Nothing but the best will do. We rely on wireless to do almost everything in life, from big deals to everyday connections. And if you can't rely on your network, it can have big consequences, like a lack of pizza. That's why you can't just trust this stuff to anybody. T-Mobile is the largest and fastest 5G network in America. So with coverage and speed like this, why would you go with anybody else?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
who else looks like they have a bender? Johnny seems like he's been on a bender. This guy's been chowing down on a sandwich, just breathing heavily the entire time.
Yeah.
He's like, what's happening over there, Johnny? Are you good?
I've been in a rush. I'm having guests over tonight for Memorial Day. So, I've been hard at work. I've been cleaning up my roof, vacuuming, power washing, grocery shopping, cooking, making my own sourdough baguettes. Yeah, it's going to be good.
You are a little house husband. That's fantastic.
Yes, I am. Indeed. Boomer is the way, Josh. I'm just saying. I don't know if you've traversed that age yet, where you're like, oh, I'm getting old. Like I'm really, doing old man stuff. But I feel like it's the way to go. Like I've accepted it at this point. I welcome boomer activities and boomer pleasures in my life. So, some guests over. Matt is coming over. Well, he's not going to get shit faced because he doesn't drink anymore. He just likes Starbucks.
Wait, this Matt is coming over.
Yeah, he is.
He's going outside of his house.
Yep.
Yeah.
First time in a year.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand outside and just watch everybody inside.
Yeah, he's the bodyguard. I paid him.
Oh, the world truly is opening back up again. That's some faith
I've run
in
out
science.
of shit to watch on Netflix, so I gotta go do something. I mean, this is
right. That's your entertainment for the evening, is watching Jonathan cook his sourdough baguettes.
Oh, I'm not watching him cook. I'm gonna go eat his stuff and then I'm gonna bounce. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch him cook. Yeah, I mean,
it'll all be cooked by the time he gets there.
Yes, because he's a very proper house husband. Yeah. I appreciate it. It's a good life. All right, the first thing that we had on the itinerary is a new experimental card. The new Overwatch experimental card. Now, the last experimental card had some batshit crazy stuff in it, and a large amount of that went to live. So, what kind of batshit stuff is in this one?
There's some batshit stuff. There's a Moira buff, which concerns me because we just spent.
We just had a Moira buff, by the way.
We needed that. We needed another one.
Orb cooldown reduced from 8 to 6 seconds. I think we need. Now there's another Moira buff.
Do you want to start from the top then? Let's start with Baptiste. Let's work our way down.
Okay, so we got
I hate this change.
Exo Boots. The charge time increased from 0.7 to 1 second. Why would you nerf the mobility of Baptiste rather than the immortality field?
Hate it.
What's the purpose? It's just because he's more evasive?
The 10%?
I mean, didn't they nerf the immortality field? But it's still not like
it's not an impactful nerf. He still keeps people immortal.
This is probably to try and make him more diveable in the sense that his mobility is reduced. I think
he has a lamp that makes him immortal.
I know.
He's not diveable.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
He has 400 health points and a regenerative burst.
I don't think this is going to do anything really outside of make him feel kind of weird to play.
I don't.
Yeah, a bit more clunky.
Yeah.
I don't like this. I hate mobility nerfs. Unless it's like a ridiculously strong mobility that like is just so broken. The thing is, Exo Boots is a perfectly balanced thing. It's nice to have a character that can navigate high grounds because it also makes Baptiste be able to impact 2 different fights, right? It's like Lucio, it's like Mercy, you know? Like Ana doesn't need that because she can heal people from very far away pretty precisely. And then Moira, whatever, who cares? But like the point being,
sprays them down.
Like Exo Boots is a really cool mechanic. It allows Baptiste to be much more mobile and active in fights. Yeah. And it is not the issue with him because he doesn't jump into space. You can't shoot him anymore after he jumps. In fact, he's easier to kill because he's just pencil jumping. Like it's like Dogman did the way of the feed of the pencil jump on Baptiste. So like the point being is like this is dumb to me. I don't like this. I hate that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Well, let's tackle the McCree change as well because you said that you don't like mobility nerfs. This is a mobility nerf as well. The combat roll distance reduced by 20%. But I think the idea with this one is that it's supposed to define him a little more in his niche so that he can't just roll towards you from the other side of the map and flashbang you. Right? I think that's the idea.
Before?
I don't think so, but I think that's the purpose of this, right?
I think he was doing that before.
But they're reverting the combat roll distance. I guess they increased it previously. I don't even remember them doing that.
Yeah, I think it was in the patch where they gave him like the slower shooting like animation, right? Remember when they made the shooting a little bit slower?
They had some kind of experimental patch where he could fucking fly. He could roll in midair, and he was actually just flying from high ground to high ground.
He was just dolphin.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was crazy.
I think if this is like the way they want to go with the McCree is like a close to medium range, like dueler. I guess this is the right way to go about it. I mean, I still have questions about just like fan the hammer on shields and just like flashbang and shields and whatnot. Where I mean, that's what combat roll kind of was doing. Like,
well, I mean, the reload time makes sense. Like, I quite enjoy that because we'd seen Overwatch League repeatedly because we saw so much McCree play that in downtime where they couldn't like precision shoot people, they just like right click all the time, and they just because the reload time was so absurd. Like the damage output per second, just right-clicking shields in front of you, or like, I don't know, whatever was in front of you, just to have like active uptime as a McCree. Like it was just bonkers. So I actually welcome this change. I think it's a good change. Distance reduced, like that too. I mean, he has more health now, so maybe they'll make him a bit more stationary frontliner. Not give him too much mobility. I kind of like the role that McCree has currently, where he's like the close range hit scan. Ash is like the mid range. Widowmaker is the long range. So they gave him some health, so he stays alive longer.
What Soldier?
He's not to be able to like just roll away.
Don't talk about Soldier, Matt.
The difference is
he's just not there.
He's not in that category, okay? Because the hit scan, like, there's different aiming styles. Like McCree and Ash, they're different in aiming. Soldier doesn't belong in that category. Soldier is just a long-range tracer with less mobility.
Yeah, okay.
That's the category, okay? So you got Tracer that is short range, flanks around, get close, and Soldier is the long-range version of that is less effective, but can still go on flanks and run around.
Right.
See,
yep.
That is just, no one plays Soldier like they play Tracer, though. You don't try and flank and harass the backline.
Soldiers long range.
They run around.
Long range. What do you mean?
Okay. Anyway, here's a deep question on this. Do you think philosophically it's a good idea for the developers to start moving somebody like McCree towards what he's going to look like more in Overwatch 2? Is that something that we should expect, or does that not make sense because it's a whole different game? I can think about it from two different perspectives.
Sense.
Like if they're going to massively change a character like McCree, then edging him more towards that would give less of a shock to McCree mains when Overwatch 2 actually drops, right? Like if they're planning to remove the flashbang and compensate for it in different ways, which was something that they were mentioning, that they were considering removing the flash, then I don't know. I feel like they might want to ease people into it. Should we be reading into anything like that? Is that just nonsense?
I think you have to balance this game for 6v6, and you have to work on balance in a vacuum for that one in 5v5. I don't think you can start like crossing or merging the two. I think you're just better off like whenever Overwatch 2 comes out or like beta or whatnot, just ripping the band-aid off then. I don't think I don't think it would probably be wise to like start introducing that stuff slowly, like, and experiment with stuff in the live game. I don't feel great about that.
You don't think they'd do that for something like Bastion, where they were saying they wanted to make him non-static?
Well, they could do it to Bastion now because he sucks
just...
now. Because he's bad.
Yeah.
So do it to him now because sure, why not change him? But McCree, people like to play McCree and his, and like you don't want to change it too much. I mean, the average Overwatch player is like a mosquito. They only react to the stimulus in front of them. And the thing is that like there's not, when you make this game currently feel bad, no one's going to be like, oh, but they're, not all the players aren't going to be holding hands kumbayaing because it's like, oh, it's for Overwatch 2, everybody. No, everyone's going to be pissed as fuck. So, like, no one's going to care about that. Like, just balance it for 6v6 right now and just rip off the Band-Aid like Matt said.
All right, fair enough. Okay, let's scroll down and move on to Moira then. What the heck have we got going on here? Biotic Grasp. The resource regeneration is now 3 times higher while channeling Coalescence. Okay.
So, essentially, when you use Coalescence, you just slowly regenerate your healing resource, right? Yeah. But now they've increased that because when people come out of Coalescence, they want them to have more healing resource to like be on the get-go. Because what happened, they said, like in the developer comments, is that you would Coalescence, not have any healing resource, and you'd have to like go do damage because you wouldn't have any resources.
The Coalescence is the healing resource. It's a big beam that heals.
But it's for damage, though.
So yeah, now when you come out of Coalescence,
that's like the one good part about Coalescence design. You have to choose to heal or do damage.
Yeah, but it's damaging though. I mean, how many Moiras have you seen actually use that to heal? I mean, they just go in front of the fucking Reinhardt and they just chase people down.
They've taken the only decision making you have to do as a Moira and removed it.
That's like the one thing about her is like you sort of, if your Moira feeds going for beams, which we've even seen in the Overwatch League level, players die. That's good. That's good.
At least they didn't add fade to Coalescence.
True.
See, I am not. Okay, the Moira, this is, I think, it just like makes her stronger, and we obviously see her in the game. The next one is the one that I'm like, okay. Like, I think Reaper's already pretty strong.
whoa. You don't get to skim through this Moira.
People are going to be pissed over this one. People are going to lose their minds.
Okay, if Avast hates the Baptiste change, I hate this one. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. The Dallas Fuel San Francisco Shock match, people were like, "Oh, this is hype as hell." You know, small details, everything matters. You know, people die left and right. It's so even. I hated that gameplay. It was like Goats 2.0. But
it was like Goats, yeah.
I don't want that to become meta. Please don't make it so that Moira can just coalescence and then build up like 50% ult in like 10 seconds again. Oh no, I have a feeling this is gonna be a
ridiculous.
Terrible
That's just ridiculous, right? Like,
does anyone? Do you have the ability to look up stats to see like what the average ult time was in that game for Moira's? Because it was absurdly quick. I don't know whether we have access to stats like that anymore. Maybe I should have asked.
Why do they want to keep buffing Moira? Is it because of usage in game? Like the wider game,
but she can't be a low pick rate hero. There's just no way.
I imagine she's not a low pick rate hero. I imagine she's a mediumly picked hero with a bad win rate. That's what I would assume.
I don't think they've ever got Moira right. To me, Moira's not defined by her. Or rather, Moira shouldn't be defined by her huge amount of healing. She should be defined by her fade, to me.
Yes,
because that is the unique part of her kit. And she is the undivable support. That's her essence. So if you then make her ability to like generate ultimates constantly and heal as much as every other support.
And damage.
And do
and
damage.
Then come out of heal, and then do more healing, and then generate the same ult again.
You've just... You have created a fucking monster at that point. Like, I feel like the way that Anna is designed, she can output enormous amounts of healing and has really good utility, but she's very diveable. She doesn't have much mobility, that kind of thing. To me, Moira should be somewhat of the opposite. You can give her some level of healing or maybe balance the healing and the damage a little bit, but you need to focus on her survivability as being the core of her kit. That's the niche that she should try and occupy. If you try and make her just do everything, You've fucking created a monster.
I legitimately think Moira should do more damage and less healing and just be like a support that enables you to fight aggressively without getting dove, but you just have shit heals. It's like Lucio Brig type of situation. I legitimately believe from the get-go that she should be designed around that anti-dive like you talked about, and she should have very limited amounts of healing and a lot more just like we're being aggressive and you can't kill our supports, so we can have a very aggressive burst fight where our supports are tough to kill.
I like
and
the
she can
idea
do more
of that,
damage.
Yeah. I think this also just kind of goes into more of like how people play the game now. Like it's so much about survivability, and like healers can pump out like so much HPS that you see compositions that are just really snowbally and together based around Moira, because like you mentioned, she has a coalescence every 25 seconds, it seems 30 seconds. Like a lot of the fights that even I saw in the games I casted, or teams would literally just stand there and just let their tanks just get
they just deliberately build coal
and just wait for coalescence, and then that's when you see something happen. So I don't know.
I looked up the pick rates on Overbuff, and essentially it makes sense. The lower you go in ranks, the more pick rate Moira has, and
she probably has
like around like a top 2 kind of support ranking up until like Plat. Like Diamond, Master, Grandmaster, she has 1% pick rate or less, but she has a decent win rate, So I don't know, I don't know what their thinking is with this change, but she is getting picked a lot, especially on console, seeing a lot of pick rate according to Overbuff. So
the other part about this too is that in the Overwatch 2 stream that they did, they were talking about, the developers were saying that we felt like there was power creep with healing per second. That was something they very specifically talked about. And then they're making a change to put in a huge amount more healing per second. It's 3 times higher while channeling Coalescence, which means that in this developer comment, right, it says it doesn't fully refill Moira's energy from empty, but it will refill half from empty.
Which is a ridiculous amount still.
Yeah, if you completely use all of your healing and then you call, you will still have half of that healing available to do again.
You'll have half a coal by then again. You'll have it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where you were just asking. Do you think they would make changes that affect the live game based on stuff for Overwatch 2?
But this is the opposite,
not,
isn't
right?
it? This is going opposite.
Yeah.
They said that they wanted to reduce this. They're adding it more.
Yeah, I mean, you're just trying to balance for the live game. at least how it is now, right? So I think anytime that Moira is like a dominant support pick, you get pretty boring compositions out of it. So for I think you guys kind of feel the same. For my personal opinion, I don't mind if she's a little bit weaker.
Okay, Reaper. Have they made him fly?
No,
not yet.
Unfortunately, not.
What is the reaping?
That's what it's called.
Is that what the lifesteal is called? The reaping.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Sure. What the dickens is this?
There's more lifesteal.
I already feel that Reaper is pretty strong.
Do you, Matt? You know, that's a new observation. Not many people have thought Reaper's too strong recently.
Well, I mean, he's pretty effective whenever I see him. Like the teams that just use him to TP in and then immediately Wraith form after getting like hit with an accretion, and then the Winston just goes in and just absolutely fucks. Like, and now you just make him even more survivable. like in these like close range brawls. Like,
by the way, I was being sarcastic. Reaper is very good.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
but they've said that they've bringing his self-healing back to where it was before the recent weapon tuning, where they made him slightly more effective at longer distance, right? They made him like so that it was more consistent when you were a little further away. How does increasing lifesteal bring it back to where it was? Lifesteal is based on the damage you're doing. Surely he's not doing 5% less damage overall with the new changes, is he?
Well, I think it's maybe.
It is from close range, actually. So that's like when you're right up in somebody's face.
Yeah. Also, I mean, what was his heal percentage, his lifesteal percentage before?
I think it was still 30, wasn't it?
Was it 30?
Well, it was no, it was 35, right?
Yeah, so they're literally just bringing it back.
Yeah, they're just bringing it back.
They're just putting it back to the base, to the original amount. It's not like we're adjusting this based off of a bunch of variables. They're just saying back to 35%.
Yeah, this is when he wasn't picked a ton, but he still felt really tanky whenever you played against a Reaper, like especially like up close.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the design of Reaper as a character because he is very limited by his range, right? You have to build your composition around putting him in positions to succeed. I like that. He should feel strong when he is in position to succeed as well, but I don't know, man. He sometimes feels like an unkillable fucking death machine.
Yeah, this is another change. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, well, what's the alternative? Do you just buff his damage and just let him go around and just...
Why does he need buffs? What's wrong with him right now?
I don't know, right? I mean, I imagine there's a bunch of people at the lower ranks who just can't use like Reaper, where maybe he's just not as strong as like we see.
Well, but I think it's all about building a composition around him. If you're playing with a comp that doesn't facilitate Reaper, if you're playing like
if you're playing Roadhog Reaper with Baptiste Ana, of course, like that's not going to be that good.
Or if you're playing it into long range snipers or something where you can't close the gap. I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's move on to Zarya, man. The base damage. Oh, sorry. Particle cannon, primary fire. The beam damage now scales from 75 to 170 damage per second, down from 95 to 170. So there's a larger scale for it. So at the lower charge, you are doing less damage.
Yes.
But at the highest charge, you're still doing the same. So it just means there's a larger scale upwards there.
Honestly, I'd kind of prefer the myself.
So she does consistent minimum damage, but can't become a laser beam?
But just can't roll people as hard. Like, I get people enjoy that, but I feel like part of the reason Zarya is so strong right now is that as soon as she's high charge, she's a fucking menace. But also, in return, I don't even think she needs any adjustment at all. Once again, I don't really see what's wrong with her currently.
I think she's slightly too effective at the moment. In a lot of different comps. I mean... Do I even believe that, though? Because I don't want to go back to a world where all we play is Sigma.
And in addition,
D.Va.
But Zarya is a very currently beatable character because of her design, right? Like, she has a self-bubble, and she has legs, and you just can walk at her or shoot her, you know?
Yeah.
She's only good because you're able to combo with other tanks and take the space, and then if you're shooting the bubble, she gets very high energy, but it's very easy to, like, not break bubbles as well, to, like, not focus fire the bubbles and get energy. And they've already changed like her damage and her charge rate so much anyways, where it takes a while for her to get up to that point.
Yeah.
So
this really doesn't shift too much though.
No, it doesn't. I don't think.
At 80%, you're doing slightly less damage than normal 80%. At 90%, you're doing a tiny bit less than normal 90%. And 0%, you're doing a significant.
They also mentioned that it was made because I guess when they did the beam changes, like to change how the beam damage like ticks on Zarya a while ago, they never adjusted her damage. So that could have been making her feel really strong. So
yeah, she definitely felt better after those beam changes. It was a lot more pleasant playing her.
Yeah,
I
don't think this will be a massive like change to her though.
No, I don't think so either. I put a link in the live chat, Kurt. A comment like breaking down like the damage changes at different charges, and like it's not a huge deal. I actually kind of like welcome this change because I think like Zarya is a bit strong. So there you go. 20% charge goes from 110 damage to 94. 50% goes from 132 to 122, and 90% is 162 to 160. So it's not a massive change. I mean, I kind of like this. Maybe see some more diva. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like Zarya is a bit strong at the moment. That being said, I love watching Zarya. But if we can see a little bit more diva on some maps, then I'll welcome it. I don't want to be in the scenario where like Zarya is the best off tank on Dorado point B, because that doesn't make sense. That's where I'd rather see like Winston diva if we could. But then you see Zarya on like Village, Nepal, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I kind of welcome the change. I don't mind it too much.
Josh,
I like having big damage when I'm full charge because I like having the big fuck you energy.
Yeah, you like feeling like a swarm of hornets. What were you saying, Matt?
Oh, I think like what you were saying though, like you get in this world where we just go back to like Sigma, right? Where Arisa is still pretty strong, and then if we have some other nerfs that come through, we're back with like Arisa Sigma.
Yeah, but they buffed Moira, so that's not gonna happen, right?
Yeah, that's true. We did buff Moira.
Overwatch balancing, whenever I see patch notes like this, I feel sorry for the developers because they have created a world where there are 1,000 variables, and anything that you tweak, you just don't know what cascading effect it's going to have. Anytime they tweak a number, it's just like letting the butterfly loose, and tornadoes are being caused on the other side of your game design. It must be I would never want that job. It sounds to me like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I would still much prefer, though, for Zarya, if they would just nerf the supports enabling her versus nerfing her, in my opinion. Because I don't think she's that strong. It's just hard to punish her currently because you have just like not, especially with like our hero, like ignoring hero pools where we remove characters from the game, so it changes the meta artificially in a way, which I'm fine with. I think it's a lot harder to punish her when you have like Baptiste. Sure. Because when you rush her, you just have an immortality field. Or if you have a Moira that generates a coal every 0.2 seconds. Right? So to me, I much prefer that versus nerfing her because she has a lot of very easy counters, but she's just strong in the current people supporting her in the cast.
I think though you get into the thing of like it kind of, this is funny, but you're going back to some of the stuff that they talked about with like Overwatch 2. It's like, okay, fine. Like if we nerf the supports, like that inherently like, changes some of the tanks. But then now you piss off a ton of people who play support where you don't have enough people who even play the tanks, even if you buff them to hell, right? So you end up in this weird type of situation where you don't, like, I feel like you wouldn't want to nerf the supports that hard, but
I mean, if that's where they're going, if they're doing the balance based off populism and like who is like gonna be affected the most, sure. Then, like, I totally understand.
That makes the Moira change.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, legitimately, that's not even like me. I'm not even being like that. If that's what they're doing, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If they want to affect smaller amounts of the player base, sure. Doesn't mean I necessarily like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what it looks like, I guess, to me, right? And that, like, you try and solve it other ways because, yeah, I mean, there's probably a ton of people, I mean, not any of us, like, that just love playing Moira regardless of whether she's good or not. Trying to bring her back into some kind of position. I mean, that just enables the pro community to just kind of just take her and run wild, but maybe it helps somewhere else in the game. I don't know.
Well, let's move on to talking about the pro situation then. This week of Overwatch League, just as a general recap, had so many one-sided games. It was unbelievable. The amount of, it wasn't just 3-0s. There were like records being set left,
It was
right,
like the
center.
third fastest match ever, right?
Yep. Yeah, the third fastest match ever occurred, which, bear in mind, that is competing and beating the majority of the Shanghai Dragons' losses in Season 1. They have 42 matches, or 40 in the regular season of Season 1 to pick from, and you managed to beat almost all of them and get right up to the top as the third fastest match of all time. That's crazy.
Didn't they also start on what's it? They started on offense, I think, Atlanta, right?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they did. So
didn't
it wasn't
start
even
defense.
It wasn't even as fast as it could have been. But anyway, we'll talk about those shitty teams later. Let's start with what I think was the best match of the team. The best match of the week. It was Dallas against Shock. Now, I want to start by saying, Johnny, you said you didn't like this game. Why didn't you like this fucking game? It was so close. It was top level.
No. I like the game. You know, it was even. It was long. It was competitive. It was back and forth, like constantly in overtime. Dallas fuel on the fights, like turned them around. That they shouldn't have. It was like incredibly tense and competitive. Don't get me wrong. It was like a fantastic game. I just didn't like the meta they played.
Right.
It was like very, you know, like you see this yourself. Like look at the ultimate user in this fight. Fielder. Oh, it's actually not the first fight.
I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a coalescence. You go with the coalescence, sound barriers, just the healing output.
Can you play the first team fight of this map? Because I think that was the one that you're thinking about, Johnny, where it was like comical. They're both teams clashed, and they built a coal and a sound barrier before they captured the point. I think.
Yeah.
Was it the first fight? Maybe it wasn't. My memory.
It was just so hectic. No, it was the first fight. So it's gonna be this one, and I mean, it's gonna be like a minute or so. But you can already see like Fielder starting to build coalescence, and Violet is gonna start building it. And I mean, they're just playing like 6-man, and they're just shooting like AOE Tesla gun damage back at each other. And you look for picks with an echo, and then eventually you're going to build like coalescence. That's your go opportunity, and both teams are going to try to push that advantage. You're going to get a death blossom at some point, and you got to time that with a defense matrix. So Fielder and Violet, they get coalescence at the same time here, and they're just both going to use it at the same time. Like, and it just got competing laser beams, just touching each other's dicks.
And then there's a sound barrier on both sides.
Yeah, it's a fucking mess. So don't get me wrong, it was a competitive fun game, but the meta,
do you believe though this is going to be like, because we've seen this and then we've also seen double like Orisa based compositions. Do you believe this wins out in the end?
I'm going to tell you, I have no idea actually.
Did you see?
I don't know.
Dallas ran an Orisa. Sorry, my throat's a little tickly. Dallas ran an Orisa based composition to defend on Anubis point A with Sparkle playing Junkrat, and Shock broke it in roughly 2 seconds. And that also happened when Shock was attacking on Hanamura against who was their other game of the week where they cracked open Hanamura
Toronto?
Immediately running this. Was it? Yeah, Toronto. I think it was. I think that my gut feeling is that these teams are running these comps right now because they've realized if you play them well enough, coordinated enough with how you engage, they can basically beat any defensive composition that has an Orisa.
This comp play to the highest level wins out, but I feel like if you play it any less, it can
punish.
lose.
Like, it's so much faster that if the Orisa comps don't perfectly anticipate your dive and already start like preemptively repositioning, you just overwhelm them because you're just so much faster. You have way more mobility. So I think it's just like it's really difficult to play the Orisa comps without making mistakes at this tempo.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the definition of we are trending towards, all metas trend towards simplicity. And this is just the simplest comp. It has the clearest win conditions, and it is exceptionally hard to punish at times without requiring perfect, like very, very strong coordinated play with your rotations. Like, it's just way harder to play every other comp into this than it is to play this comp if you're playing it really well. And I don't think this comp is unbeatable, but it's just like GOATs. Like, Shanghai figured out you could be GOATs, but you just have to play so much better at that comp than you have to play GOATs, right? And so that's currently how I feel about this. And I especially hate this comp, not just because GOATs, like, we've seen so many GOAT type of metas, like Johnny was saying, but also I just think it's silly that the Echo is in this comp, and I hate the synergies within it. I despise the fact that we have an Echo Reaper with dive tanks and we're playing Lucio Moira. To me, it is just like a Frankenstein composition that has been pieced together from a bunch of different things, and it only exists because of the current hero pools. Yeah. And once again, I don't have any problem with hero pools. I like hero pools, in fact. I'm fine with them. It's just like, I just hate the comp.
Yeah.
I just don't like the comp. But it might be...
I mean, it's not just hero pools, though. It's because Echo is so powerful right now as well. Right? It's a combination of that.
I think you can make an argument, because don't we have Tracer banned? You can make a very real argument that people would play like Tracer over Echo for this.
Oh, I think people would play like Tracer Sombra
it would make like a lot more synergistic sense.
Yeah, Tracer Sombra probably.
Yeah, like you'd be playing different compositions. Like the reason, Echo's really strong, but like she wouldn't be in this comp if it weren't for the bans, right?
Yeah, probably, yes. Yeah. Overall, though, I think, I don't know, I'm interested to see these kind of teams, Dallas and Shock, play against Atlanta Gladiators, the teams that are trying to play more of the Orisa-based stuff, which the Gladiators have shown much more flexibility there, that they're able to play both versions of it. But I wonder whether it's going to be a scenario where you actually do need to be flexible, or whether you can just... It'll end up with people mirroring either this comp or the Orisa comp anyway, so one team will just end up beating out because the meta is in their favor. I feel like it's really hard to get your finger on the pulse right now of what exactly the meta is and what it's going to be for the end of the June Joust, because people have only been playing it for 2 weeks or so. 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think this comp is beatable still. I understand why people are trending towards it, but I still think this comp is very beatable simply because it is a Frankenstein composition. There is no clear-cut synergies other than like with the Reaper and the Lucio Moira. There's no like, and then like the dive tank sort of makes sense, but like the Echo is just an odd person out, and like because they don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of like where you just have to be taking the fights aggressively. I think this comp is beatable. I just think the real issue is anyone going to be effective enough at executing a counter comp to where it's worth it to run?
Yeah.
Because it's just easier to run that comp.
It is fucking weird. Yeah. I mean, the Echo is just so strong that it almost feels necessary, especially with the focus. Like, all the kills I see from the Echo are like basically like over the top focusing beam shenanigans when like Reaper goes in with the Winston, the Diva, they do a ton of damage. And then Echo just comes over the top and just deletes them in like one second. The healing doesn't even matter, where it might be something that's just because of hero pools. This is the type of thing that you get.
Yeah. Instead of talking about the meta, though, what do you think about these two teams? It was our first time seeing the San Francisco Shock this week, and to me it looked like they came back, I want to say with a vengeance, but there were definitely some moments of mortality still. They didn't look immediately like they were going to be hands down the best team in the league. There's no way you can beat them, like it sometimes feels with the Shock, but they definitely look immediately back to being a tier 1 team. And I'm not even sure really whether they left or whether there was just enough competition in the rest of the league. But it did feel like when they were playing, Violet on McCree and that kind of stuff, that they had flaws with their personnel and how they wanted to run them. I didn't get that impression from watching this week. That everything that we've seen so far in the June Joust from the Shock indicates to me that this meta is good for them. They've found a good rotation of people. They have a good idea of when they want to run them. Like they sub in Glister for the long-range hit scan maps. They have Twilight coming in to play Ana for them as well. Like I like the system, and I feel like they have a very good shot of being able to go deep or win the June Joust. Is that mirrored with everybody else? Are you all Shock believers again?
I am. Yeah. And I think it may just be like their early season shenanigans where they just fuck around for a bit. Like last season, at the beginning of the season, they tried a bunch of different stuff. And then eventually Krusty's like, okay, all right, guys, like, let's just get back to it. And then they just kind of start to own again, where like, maybe I'm a bit surprised about like how strong that they've looked. And it's, I think more the stuff that I'm surprised about is like, a player like Glister, who we didn't really see at all in the main melee, like he comes in and not really in the Toronto series, but in this series really looked like Glister again.
Yeah.
And then FD God looks like he just fits in perfectly now too. Like after we thought like Johnny wanted to bench Violet because he didn't think FD God was comfortable. I mean, he looked
this is a much simpler meta to play Lucio in, though.
That's
I
true.
think. You know, you don't have flexibility in your job. You literally are required at all times to be doing just
run them
your
in.
strict role. Yeah.
Yeah, it is simpler. It just feels like they figured out the team a little bit. I mean, it definitely helps that the Glister can play the long range hit scan now. In the Toronto series, like when he played Junkertown on attack there for a minute against Aspire, I was like, oh god, like this is
no
bad.
bueno.
It didn't look good. But then he finally popped off in this series, so that's a great sign.
But is that a good sign? I want to ask you, sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask you that question, Johnny. Is it a good sign that in the series where he was actually playing against another hit scan player, he got clapped, and he only played well when he didn't have somebody directly doing that and challenging him? Does that actually give you confidence?
I think the dynamics are a little bit different. I don't know. I felt like Glister was hunted a lot by Neist in that Toronto series. And I feel like maybe that got to him to the point where he played really passive because he couldn't take like wide angles or play proactively because he felt like Neist was just gonna, come right at him from every angle. But then, the counter argument is, well, maybe FD God should have, provided him some armor packs, helped him out a little bit. But it definitely felt like Glister was caught off guard by having to duel Aspire, which he really didn't do. And then also Neist just hunting him all the time. Whereas, I don't know, like the Dorado map was so weird against Dallas Fuel because he would like flank around the Dallas Fuel, like absurd flanks. And I'm just like, where does that confidence come from then? Like if you can't navigate an Echo successfully on a straightforward map like Junkertown, it is kind of straightforward compared to Dorado, where he just goes for like 180 flanks. I mean, it's crazy. So I don't get it. I think it was a good sign anyway that he like had one good map. I think that really helps him out, and he looked really happy. The team was popping off that board, so like, enjoying it. So I do think that was a good sign. But also I enjoyed them playing Violet Brig and Twilight Ana because Twilight is a fucking beast. Twilight is still a top 3 Ana in the world. Like the plays he makes,
he's insane.
It's unreal. It's unbelievable. And then Violet as well on the Brig. It reminded me a bit of Alarm. Philadelphia Fusion, where they would have Alarm play the Brig because it's actually a bit of a mechanical hero. If you can hit all your whip shots and all your shield bashes, it makes a big difference. And we saw Violet actually be that difference maker on Dorado.
Violet did play it a tiny bit last season. Not very much, but he picked it up for a small amount of time.
Yeah, so I think this is a great adaptation. Like if FD God can't reliably be that Brig, I actually predicted Dallas Fuel here because I thought that their dives combined with FD God playing the Brig would be like too much to handle. But then they just put Violet on the Brig, and like it looked a lot better. And Twilight is doing his thing. Nero's Echo is solid, and everyone's just popping off. So it looks like the Shock has just figured out their roster, what they want to do, and what makes sense. So, but tier 1, yeah.
I mean, I never thought they weren't tier 1 though. I just always thought they were at the bottom of tier 1, like last stage.
Right.
Like they were all definitely still tier 1. They weren't going to lose to mid-table teams, like more likely not, and they weren't going to lose to bottom tier teams ever.
Yeah.
And they would definitely still win against top teams. Sure. It's just they weren't looking like the absolute best anymore.
Matt, what the fuck are you doing?
He's getting real close. Give us a kiss.
The camera just fell down. I don't know what the hell happened.
Matt. But also, to me,
fell.
I think this is just a perfect meta for Shock. I don't even necessarily think they figured it out yet. I still think their roster has some holes that they're still working out, and Krusty has to take some spirit journeys with. Like, I just think that this meta is perfect for them because like it's just goats. And Shock is just really good at goat shit. Yeah. And like and FD God is literally the goat's Lucio.
Yes.
It everything about this meta is perfect for Shock to play comfort heroes and also to play comfort styles.
Yeah.
So there is no current and no other team is going to really do it better. Thing. So I think this is just like a really good meta.
I want to know what you guys thought about the Violet Lucio on Eichenwald as well. They ran Violet Twilight. They were clearly expecting to run similar comps like this Dorado with the double bubble or the long range hit gun or something. They wanted to run Ana Break, I'm assuming. But they ended up getting forced into playing the Lucio Moira mirror. Does that give you concerns? That to me was the first sign of like, oh, they actually haven't figured this meta out. They still are working through which comps are the best on each map. Because to me, there's no way that you field Violet Twilight if you think there's a chance that you should be playing Lucio.
We've seen Violet's Lucio before.
I don't think so. Have we?
Yeah, we definitely have.
When the fuck have we seen Violet's Lucio
I think
before?
we have seen it, but it's one of those situations
at
where
times.
I hated it.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing.
Oh.
It's we've seen it, but it's just like a situation where it's like peak crusty crack pipe type of thing, and like it's like when we saw Repel play Lucio for Fuel. It's just not good.
Yeah.
It's just like a team that hasn't figured it out yet, and they're
out.
like, well, we gotta have this player in to maybe flex to a different flex, like a different hero or something.
Let's see.
Can you find when that was, Matt?
Played. Yeah.
Was it during Countdown Cup when they subbed in Twilight in the Philadelphia series? Violet had to play it? I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Because they're only going to do it when they're playing double flex support. The potential to play double flex support heroes. You know?
Yeah.
They're going to do it when you might want to play double flex support.
Oh, shit. Actually, I feel like I think it was when Moth was in the game. But they were playing double flex support and they wanted to keep Moth's ultimate or something. And so Violet went Lucio and it was...
Was that a King's Row?
I can't remember, but they got rolled. That's what I remember.
It doesn't matter. It's just not good.
Yeah.
Not good, though.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, I really want somebody to do a review. I would love Custer. Custer does replay VOD reviews, right? I would love him to do a replay VOD review of Violet's Lucio there. Because whenever I was like glancing at it, obviously I couldn't pay attention to it fully during the entire cast. But whenever I noticed it, he's just like on the floor, zipping around trying to do damage to people. But
he knows the basics of the role. Like he knows what he needs to be doing in the comp. He needs to be peeling for Twilight. He needs to be trying to like give value to Striker.
And like the speed boost timings were okay on the disengages.
But it's just he doesn't have the mechanics for the hero. And also a lot of the finer points of like when exactly you're supposed to be, like when exactly are you hitting your boost, right? Like it's very obvious when you're doing a setup and engage, like you're doing your boost. But there are sometimes when you're mid-fight, your boost is better saved for certain instances. And also when your boops need to be timed to like, are you peeling for someone or you're setting someone up to get a kill? Like there's a lot of things about Lucio that are very micro decision plays on top of the mechanics involved. And he just didn't have that down. It was more like he understood the general macro of what he was supposed to be doing, which is not going to work at the highest level.
Yeah, it's really intriguing though. I'm excited to watch this team. All right, Dallas Fuel then. Give me the keynotes on Dallas. For me, this match indicated that Dallas are not as meta defining as they were last stage.
No, they looked a bit off. Like I don't know. Did you guys have any standout players from Dallas Fuel who like outplayed their counterpart? I feel like they were most of the time just one step behind. Like Sparkle had a few questionable moments. You know, Doa's a great echo, but like I just felt like Shock were, because it's so goatsy, I feel like Shock were always like one coalescence ahead, or not ahead in terms of like 100% ultimate charge, but they were like 2 seconds earlier on every ultimate, or like 2 seconds better timing. It just felt like Dallas Fuel were figuring out how to play this comp a little bit. Well,
I didn't see the whole match. When did they decide to swap Sparkle and Doha? Because the match that I watched earlier in the week, where the Dallas Fuel, Sparkle was playing the Echo, and then Doha was on the Reaper. They swapped for that whole Shock series, or?
I think they want to keep Sparkle flexible in case they need to run the Echo Genji version of it. So
they've swapped.
This to me makes more sense as well, though, because Doha's Echo, I think, has been one of the shining points of the season for them. Like his Sombra has also been good, but his Echo has been really standout in the previous meta, and it's unusual. I think that I wasn't expecting it coming into the season, so I think this makes sense to me to run it this way around.
Yeah, I think it makes sense when you mention them trying to play, if they want to play Genji or something else like that.
They wanted to
Sparkle
play the Genji,
be the one who switches.
I think they wanted to play the Genji at the beginning of Iconvold. I think they started with Sparkle on it for some reason. Because I think the Shock began on like a Brig Ana setup. I can't exactly remember, but I think the Shock began on some kind of Brig Ana setup, maybe with a McCree, and so Sparkle scouted it, wanted to go Genji to go like hardcore dive to be able to beat it, rather than playing a little more slowly. And so we ended up just being on these roles, because then ultimates are more important if you have two players that can play it flexibly.
I want to know what the hell happens when Pine comes in. Like, I am still. I saw he was duoing with Fearless, I think, during the week. I mean, he looked good in ranked, but I mean, he's just obviously way different doing it in a match. Like, just what he provides to this team. Like how the Shock can bring in Glister to play that long range hit scan. Like Dallas has zero option of that right now. So I'm interested when he gets here how they incorporate it.
Is there an ETA?
I also just don't. I don't think so.
No, they mentioned a while ago that like end of June Joust we could expect Pine.
Right. Okay.
Because also he still has to get in the States.
Right.
So like I think they that was their ETA they gave as a team. Obviously that's always up to the visa gods and interpretation a bit. So
and also he would have to then get to Hawaii as well. I guess if you're in the US, you can go to Hawaii.
End of June Joust could be like maybe before.
Right.
Stage tournament.
I wouldn't play him this tournament, to be honest, if I was them. Even if he got here, I think you need to give him time to move, get used to the States again, practice with this team, like get into Overwatch League scrims. Like there's a lot before I think you can just say, oh hey, we're in the knockouts, Pine. Nice to just grab your keyboard out of your bag and go sit down and fucking select Widowmaker. Like I think he needs way more time adjusting than that, where you've already won one tournament of the year, right? You're kind of you know what type of team you have. You want to make sure that acquisition goes right, so give it time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like the idea. All right then, let's move on to our next talking point here, which is the Gladiators, because Birdring got his little birthday wins, didn't he? That was sweet. Birdring has also been popping off.
Remember what I said?
If they play Birdring,
just keep playing Birdring, they'll win.
Yeah,
that's just truth. That's just literally the truth.
He's probably been their most well. I don't know whether I'd say most consistent, because I think Shu's also been really like damn consistent over the course of his whole career. But this year, Birdring has been just every time he's fielded, he plays excellently. There's no drop off. There's no difference when it comes to his mentality or anything. He's in the server.
When he played
he's
Creed
popping.
2, he was insane.
Yeah.
So like,
I think he got better at the end of the season last year.
Sure, but the point being is like they just keep playing.
I mean, fuck me. If he gets better at the end of the season this year, he's unbelievable.
just keep playing Birdring. Literally, just keep playing Birdring.
Well, it almost makes too much sense. Like during the melee, we saw them make a lot of like, they put Mirror in the off tank role. They're playing a lot of like Mirror, Kevzerk, DPS lines. Like they seem to have just kind of figured it out now. Just like we even saw Space play Zarya during this. Like keep Birdring and Kevzerk in. They're both fucking nuts. I actually thought Skewed was really good on the Brig this week. From when I casted, I thought he was massive for them.
Yeah, he was fantastic in the Atlanta game.
And you're starting to see this team play how you thought they would play at the beginning of the season. Maybe this is just a strong meta for them, or maybe they have figured out not to make as many substitutions and just play, their best six, right? With just subbing out that support.
Yeah, to me, that's the key. That's the thing that I'm really focused on here, is that it just made it was way too cute what they were trying to do with subbing in Mirror and then subbing him in on Zarya because they wanted him to be leadership figure in the team or something and direct the team fights like that. It doesn't. It's those are the kind of theoretical benefits that ignore the intangibles of just changing shit up all the time is going to make you worse. So I love this. I think having Skewed be very specialized on the break, it's all good.
Why the fuck do you get Moth if you need somebody else to come in and be the leader? The guy just won back-to-back chips. Like what? I mean, I don't know.
Back-to-back chips.
Back-to-back chips.
You're a sports fan. You disgust me.
What? He's got his rings.
Yeah.
When he won 2020 though, I think that's a Mickey Mouse ring, like LeBron. It's a Mickey Mouse ring. That's what I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
I wonder how many times Gladiators would win this series if we played it over. Because it generally felt like a really close series.
Okay.
I think both teams were really good. I actually think Atlanta Reign was the better team on Rialto. I think they played a double shield composition
Rialto,
really
right.
well. Really, really good.
I think Birdring pulled out some magic on that map where he was just hitting
Space did too.
Getting picks left, right, and center. What did Space do again? Can you remind me?
He hit like an accretion.
He hit those crazy accretions.
Twice. the accretions onto Fluxing Sigmas like 2 times. Gladiators, they capped point B, Rialto, but just like winning one team fight because of spawns and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then space hit those 2 accretions to finish out the map.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to discredit the Gladiators. I think these were 2 really good teams, but I feel like Atlanta Reign could improve a little bit, while the Gladiators, okay, I think both teams had a really good performance, but I wouldn't say that like Gladiators is outright the better team. I'm curious if they play this match 5 times, would Atlanta Reign win like 3, or would Gladiators win 3? You know, I think it's a really close matchup and good play from both teams. So
I'm not a fan though of Atlanta's lack of flexibility. I do love this Orisa Diva composition that they've got going, and I think they're great at being able to play it. I've been a big fan of how it empowers Gator and Hawk, and then gives space for Kai and Pelican to do so much work on DPS heroes that they're fantastic at. But they're also trying to play it on maps where they're just getting hard beaten to death, like this one here, where I think that as we trend towards the pinnacle of the June Joust meta, I think it's either going to go in a Winston direction, or at least you're going to have that in your back pocket to pull out at some point. And I don't think Atlanta have really demonstrated that they can play those comps to a top level. I think most of their success has been driven by this Orisa Diva or Orisa Sigma kind of stuff.
I mean, most of their success in the Overwatch League period, not even just in the June Joust, has really been with the Orisa Sigma, Orisa Diva type of compositions. Like, yeah, I mean, to not be able to play, like, yeah, you can only get so far by only being able to play like one type of composition, like especially with what we saw in the Melee with how much, you know, diversity like between maps. Like you still see at times, like in this meta, it's definitely not as much, but like Double Shield or, you know, Orisa base is better in certain areas than the Winston in the other. They don't even try and play the Winston stuff. They just keep speed boosting the Orisa in and just trying to get her in place. But yeah, I don't think you can win a league event playing that way.
No. I think Atlanta is going to have the same problems that everyone predicted Atlanta to have, which is like their nutso DPS line, but their tank line just is slightly inflexible and in certain metas can look rough. I think this is finally the first season that Gator and Hawk are looking like the players they should be looking like coming out of contenders. They look good, but like I don't know, in metas where you're going to be seeing a lot of Winston, this team and a lot of dive centric stuff, like I don't think this team is necessarily going to be built for it. Still.
How do you think the Gladiators would end up going up against a Dallas or a Shock? Like, do you think that they could go toe to toe in those Moira Lucio comps or beat them with Orisa compositions? I
think they could fight Dallas.
Really?
I was going to say that as well.
Yeah,
I think they could contend with Dallas. I think they'd have a much harder time with the Shock.
I feel like it could be very map dependent. Like maps like Rialto or Dorado, where you have these long sight lines and the Orisa comps might be...
Junkertown.
Yeah, or Junkertown as well. I feel like they could definitely get wins. But I don't know, man. I feel like the tempo level in the Dallas Shock game was very high. Not just because of the comps that they were running, but also just the team and individual decision making was pretty difficult, I think, for other teams to match.
It felt like a playoff game for sure. Like the tempo was just there, the decision making. Yeah, both teams wanted to engage for sure.
I'm just glad I'm not on Glad's Copium anymore. I was on Glad's Copium a little bit, so.
Okay. What you mean because of? A lot of people actually predicted this team to win the whole fucking season.
Yeah, I didn't have them that high.
They flumped.
I didn't have them that high, but I definitely had them like top 3 in A, I think. And
where are they in the standings now? They must be somewhere near. They're 4-2.
They are 5th in NA.
5th in NA.
Okay,
that's not terrible still.
Yeah, and they're on
above,
the rise.
Yeah, they're above the Justice, right below. They have the same record as the Mayhem, who are in 4th, but the Mayhem have that extra point because of the Melee.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fair for them. So this is the roster they should be running. I think that fixes so many of their issues. Like legitimately just fixes so many of their issues because Birdring is so good. Like having a constant player rotation will fix most of their easily fixed. Like that's
okay.
Baseline.
All right. Well,
it's just to wrap up as well. I think it's so. I don't know. Scary is not the right word, but we have so many competitive teams like top 6, top 8 NA that are all like very competitive and capable of playing like the either double shield or the Winston comp. That knockouts are bound to be crazy like matches because the meta's not figured out yet, and teams are specializing their own shit and looking really good at it. Like Atlanta Reign, as I said, like they're a really good double shield team, like on this Rialto map. And then you also have Gladiators. How is Washington going to adapt if they play like the Winston Rush kind of thing? Yeah, there's so many good teams in NA now. The knockout match is going to be crazy.
And you look at a team like Dallas. I mean, currently for the June Joust, they're in 6th. Their first match in next week is against Florida, and both of those teams are tied 1-1. So like you could realistically say like one of those teams is not going to make it. Out of those two, I think Dallas plays the Titans, so they'll get a win there. Who does Florida play? Florida plays the Justice. So Florida has a really tough week. If the Justice show any signs of life, I mean, we'll see how that turns out.
I meant to do this, but I'd love to see a strength of schedule kind of thing for May Melee and June Joust to just see like who has the easier road to get there. Like Houston Outlaws, I think it's been pretty easy so far.
Well,
they played Atlanta Reign, but
yeah, 2 teams that are already. I mean, they look really good, right? Where the Reign are in 1st at 3-1, and then the Outlaws in 2nd at 3-1. Atlanta has 1 map on them.
The problem with strength of schedule stuff, though, is that it changes from meta to meta. So if you use the main melee strength to try and figure it out for June, it would just be wrong. Because some of the teams got so much better and some of them got kind of dropped off a little bit. So I think it's quite hard to tell unless you do it with hindsight. And at that point, it's somewhat useless. But it could be good once we get to the actual tournament, because then we should have a decent idea of who's good and who isn't. I want to talk about Atlanta Reign for a little bit. We've already touched on them quite a bit here, but where are the reasonable expectations for this team as we go into the June Joust? They are. Did you just say they're number 1 at the moment in terms of the June Joust in standings?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that'll hold though, because you have Boston and the Gladiators both at 2-0 going into this final week.
Yeah.
Boston plays Paris, and then they play the Gladiators, and Gladiators plays Boston and Paris. So the winner of that Boston Gladiators game could find themselves like finishing 4-0 at knocking. That would actually knock Houston out of the 2 spot potentially. Yeah,
I can definitely see that occurring. I mean, Gladiators won the game against Atlanta, so I think they should be considered.
You could knock both of those teams out. Because the Gladiators are at 2-0 with a +5, and Boston is 2-0 with a +6, and Houston finishes 3-1 with a +5, and Atlanta 3-1 with a +6. So you could see both of those teams pass.
This is why
even with a loss between each other.
This is why I don't pay any attention to numbers. Matt is just throwing numbers at me, and I don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
I'm not
I hope there are people out there who did understand what Matt just said.
I simply don't have the mental capacity currently after this week to just listen to what Matt's saying to me.
He's throwing numbers out there of how things would shift and stuff. I think actually someone built a website that can do that kind of stuff as well. You can plug in a bunch of
I think it's just called like owlstandings.com or something.
Yeah, I think it's owlstandings.com. I mean, if you're interested, you can have a fiddle around on there and kind of run your fantasy theories of how it might work out and where people might end up.
The Spitfire are eliminated, though.
Thank you.
And
no.
Titans too? Wow.
Yeah. And looking at the math with the Titans at 0-2 at -6, it doesn't look good for them either.
Oh no!
Really, Matt? No, that's crazy. Yeah. Thank you for keeping us up to date with what's going on with those.
This
teams.
format sucks. Titans eliminated already. Hate it.
Can the Atlanta Reign win the June Joust?
No.
Why not?
Do you genuinely feel like the meta is just gonna trend towards this Echo Reaper stuff, and Atlanta will just have like no chance? Like I understand on some rounds and some maps they're just getting scammed, but I feel like they could remain competitive on a lot of maps where teams haven't figured out their stuff.
That's true. I agree with that. Can you see them beating 2 of the other top 6 teams in one weekend? I can't.
Well, I mean,
I could have seen them beat the Gladiators this past week. Like, I could have seen them beat the Gladiators.
Right, but like, could they beat the Gladiators and then
the Houston
immediately
Outlaws,
turn around and beat the Shock?
Outlaws, to be fair, but I mean, Shock is a reach. The graphic right here is gatekeepers once more, which I think is highlighting last season how they just like pooed on bad teams and then lost to all the competitive teams. Whereas this meta, I do feel like they are a bit more competitive. Like, they're not a brush over. You have to actually perform well to beat the Atlanta Reign. And so I feel like they're definitely competing for the top 6 knockout matches. Well, they got a 3-1 record already. But I feel like going into the knockouts, this is a team that could legitimately upset maybe one those teams. I don't think they'll make it to the playoffs, but they could like be a threat.
To me, though, this is their best chance. If you can't do it now, you probably can't do it as the Atlanta Reign. So if you're given a meta that works for you, a meta where your DPS can pop off, where Gator and Hulk are on good rolls, where you've initially got a good read on it and look like you come out the gates incredibly strong, if you can't actually get wins over tier 1 teams now, you're cursed to be the gatekeepers forevermore. You are Saint fucking Peter at the gates. And you let people through, or you stop people from going through, but you are never going to become God. It just simply is not going to happen.
I think they're even better than like gatekeepers at this point. Like I think they have proven themselves to be better than that. I just don't know. In a 6-team tournament with Atlanta, Houston, Boston, Gladiators, Shock, and Dallas, can they beat 2 of those teams to make it out?
They can beat 2 of them. It's just that the second one they would beat is like they have to be better because they've made it through the bracket already deeper, right? Like, they could beat 2 random teams from that, no problemo. But can they beat what? Like, I think it just depends on how the bracket plays out. I do think, though, that the Atlanta Reign fans should genuinely want this team to go to Hawaii this time around. If they don't make it now, I think you end up being really disappointed. Like, fuck me, we're just never doing it.
This is a really good meta for them, I will say. As someone that was lower on Reign than most people because we had the great Scrimbucks fucking panic of 17-20 and everyone was like going crazy over this, I think this meta for them currently is very strong. I think their team, though, is obviously better this year than it was last year, just as a default. I think there is other metas they do well, though. I think there are other metas, but it's going to require like some wonky hero pools for them.
Which only happens once more in the season, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, there are other metas that can happen. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's a chance this team could still have a good meta. I think right now, though, it's a good spot for them. And I also think they're going to be good enough to where they're not a gatekeeper. I don't consider Atlanta a gatekeeper team anymore. No. I consider them like towards the upper half. They're not really mid-table. They're towards the upper half, but they're like still just right above mid-table.
I feel like as well, the Atlanta Reign, like they were one of the last teams in the main melee stage to move away from Rush, which obviously by, all accounts, preseason, Scrimbucks, whatever, they were one of the better Rush teams. And then the meta just moved towards more Winston, more dive, that kind of stuff. And Atlanta Reign just like held on to what they were really good at. So I do think that they can be competitive in other metas. I just feel like main melee specifically, they were too slow to adapt because maybe they were, too good at the...
But Jonathan, I think that's happening again right now before our very fucking eyes. I think that they're going to hold on to these Orisa comps when they should be trying to maneuver into Winston stuff, at least on a range of maps. I think this is a team that's come out the gates with a great idea of what the meta is, has performed super well, and is just not going to be able to keep up.
But the problem there is, once again, is that like I feel like also we're misreading this as, they're not adapting versus they don't want to play those comps.
But that's also going to lead to failure.
Exactly. That's why I was low on the Atlanta Reign, because they don't want to play those comps. Like, that's why I was way lower on them. Is like, I don't think they ever want to be in a situation where they have to be playing Winston all the time, Yeah. They prefer to have Gator on Ryan, on Orisa, right?
Yeah.
He's great on those 2 heroes. His Winston, fine, serviceable. I wouldn't say it's like going to be top tier, right? And Hawk, I think, functions a lot better with Gator in metas where they can play around Gator's comfort picks than when they're playing the full dive. So I think that's the problem with Reign. It's always going to be the problem, is that this team is good enough to where they're going to be strong. They're going to be better than they've ever been before. They'll no longer just be mid-table. And they could even beat some pretty good teams in the right metas. but they're just never gonna figure out. They're just never gonna have the really exact right.
Do you never think they're going to be good at Winston comps? Like if they actually practiced it and really tried.
I think they'll be better than a lot of teams. I just don't think they'll beat Dallas. I don't think they'll beat Shock. I don't think they'll beat maybe even Houston or like Mayhem.
Maybe Florida. Yeah, like really good. Yeah.
All those teams I just listed would likely be better than, and even Justice if they get their shit together. Like all those teams, I could see them be better at Winston comps than Rain.
Can I run this? Can I run this potential June Joust knockout run of their road by you?
I have to bake bread, Matt. I can't stay there for 2 hours.
We need a Doctor Strange costume for Matt.
I need an IV drip too, because if he's gonna do this, I just don't have the electrolytes.
Okay, all right, Matt.
Well,
Matt.
Hold on.
Go, and I will try and understand what the hell you're saying.
Right. So the Gladiators and Shock look really good to get the first 2 seeds right now.
Okay.
To both finish 4-0.
Okay.
Boston would finish with 1 loss. And then same with Atlanta. And then you'd have first round matchup of Atlanta versus Dallas. Can they beat Dallas?
They can beat Dallas.
Yeah, they can.
Yes,
yeah, they can.
Especially if they get to pick maps that force Dallas into uncomfortable scenarios due to their hit scan loss. I think Dallas look weaker in a map pick scenario because they just have a gaping hole in their game right now that they could fill in the prior meta, but they haven't demonstrated that they can fill yet. They might still figure out how to like dodge the fact that they have a hit scan, but as of yet, we can't say that they will. So yeah, I think they could beat Dallas, but it would still be
could
a hard game.
Could they then beat the Shock?
No.
The chances of them beating both teams in a row are very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Is that the path that they would have? Dallas and then Shock? That's fucking barbaric. Yeah. Who the fuck is on the other side of the bracket?
Uprising would play the Outlaws, and then the winner would play the Gladiators.
That's a much better bracket.
Just a free ticket for LA.
But I mean, but also still, once again, this is the meta. They could do it. They could do it, but I just don't see it against like the likes of like Dallas and Shock and stuff. It would be versus Mayhems and Houstons and stuff like that.
And Boston.
And Boston. Like they could beat top 5 teams. I just don't think they're going to be top 2, 3 teams. Yeah.
Well, it comes down to how that bracket looks like, because that was only one of Matt, Mr.X, Doctor Strange, 14 million universes. All right, let's move on a little bit, though. I want to talk about a rookie that came into the league, Aspire. He debuted for the Toronto Defiant, and he kind of popped off. I was surprised at how good he looked on a mechanical basis, and in terms of the fights he was taking as well weren't too sloppy. He wasn't getting caught out of position. He was just putting himself in position to get kills and getting kills or getting damage insanely consistently. He was beasting in the first match that I watched him, even though they lost.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, this is what you wanted to see, right? They pick up a 30-day contract to replace Logix, who, had some COVID complications, as well as some of the other members on Toronto Defiant. And the guy just like ego duels Glister on the San Francisco Shock and just like pops off, and it's the most ridiculous shots. Like that one mid-air shot onto mid-air Glister. So that was probably the sickest Widowmaker shot I think I've ever seen in the league. Like, yeah, this guy was just on one. Love the confidence from him, the duels he was taking. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
I want to see more. And I also wonder with some of these teams who haven't looked good thus far, how there are probably other players kind of like Aspire out there somewhere that you could at least give a try. I mean, like he just comes in for Toronto against the Shock and looks good, right?
Yeah.
Give him like more time, more coaching, like who knows, right? I think some of these teams need to look into players like this and where they can mold players to really kind of get towards the top, because there are some teams that are just stuck in limbo right now.
Well, also, though, Aspire did come into a functioning team system here.
Yes.
As a hit scan player where he can play quite individually. He's playing a Widowmaker, or he was playing a bit of Reaper or McCree on some of the other maps as well.
He didn't come in to play main tank for the Titans.
Exactly. Yes. It's a much more it's a role where you don't have to be as coordinated with your team, and he has a good team around him to like fill the other shit. If you're in charge of the Vancouver Titans right now and you're thinking, wow, Aspire was really good, why don't we just drop all of the players we have and pick up people like him? You're not fitting one person into a functioning team. I mean, even if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to drop Linkser and pick up Aspire or something, you are not slotting Aspire then into a functioning team environment. You're not changing the fact that the rest of your team is going to get rolled over, and then Aspire is going to die before he has the time to do anything anyway. So you need to make larger changes, but they have to be like focused on the team success rather than just
I mean, what team
players
needs a player right now that is not a flaming dumpster fire, essentially?
Dallas need a hit scan, but
Dallas got a hit scan.
Yeah, and I don't think Aspire would have been a particularly good fit for a full.
I think all the teams are actually relatively well rounded, aside from the poo-poo two teams. And I think that's
if we're talking about North America, yeah.
I mean, like even Defiant, which I think is way below my expectations for what I wanted for them. They still have a very functioning roster.
Yeah,
and like it's fine for them. Like, so I just don't think there's any team that actually needs players other than teams.
Justice.
What player does the Justice need? Tell me, Matt.
Aspire for Jerry.
Okay, yeah.
Would you swap Aspire for 37?
Honestly, probably not. I mean, you could make the argument you should, but considering 937 now has been integrated to the team environment, and I still think has had looked solid, legitimately, I don't see any reason why Boston would even bother doing that.
He's looked solid. I don't think.
And also, they're a full Korean roster now.
Yeah, that's
they're a full Korean roster, and they will continue to be. Anyone that says that Fusions or Punk or ColorX is going to play, Punk might do for certain maps like Sigma, but like they're going to be full Korean. Why would you pick up Aspire?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thought experiment. Like, where would we like fit Aspire into all of these different teams? Like he came out and was really good. I think it's a sign for when most of the members of American Tornado actually comes of age, because most of those guys are still like 17, 16 years old,
but they're
still out there dominating in a contender. So Aspire, even though he was on dark mode and A for the longest time, like he was on American Tornado for a little bit, but I think this is promising as proof that there is talent in contenders that can be promoted to the Overwatch League. And you don't have to look at Overwatch League resumes all the time. You can actually promote some young talent. There is some skill there. So, I think it was a great showing from Aspire. And like, especially going into like next year, if a team decides to rotate some people out, well, then that Aspire, he came in for the Toronto Defiant. He looked really solid. Who knows what's going to happen to him next? He still has a few matches to play, right? Are Toronto Defiant done?
No, I thought they still have more.
They do have more.
No, they're done.
Oh, are they really?
1 and 3. Yeah, 1 and 3.
So
1 and
maybe
3
he'll play some.
Really?
Wow, that happened fast.
Yeah, who did they play? They played San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Life comes at you fast.
Yeah, Toronto played their first matches.
I mean, also, was there ever a narrative that there weren't talented contenders? I feel like this was the year that was the most contenderous year yet.
Except there was only one player from North American contenders, and it was Juby, who came out of collegiate. There was 0 North American contenders.
But the thing
players.
is, all the good North American players are like the ones that can't, that are legally can't play. Like that's the thing, right? It's not about there's not being talent. It's just the talent that exists simply can't be promoted.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone said American Tornado could be good. It's just they weren't old enough to play.
They're not old.
Right?
I just think a lot of contenders players got a bad rap from what is now the London Spitfire and the dumpster fire that is. Because I feel a lot of people are just like, well, British Hurricane got promoted and they look like trash, and therefore contenders players are, not legitimate.
Maybe EU contenders.
No, but even then, even so, I think
say.
they're gonna look a little bit better once Sparker comes of age, in June. But yeah, I feel like Aspire was a nice breath of fresh air, because I feel like generally when you promote contenders players, they don't have, incredible showings. Yiska compared Aspire here to Shockwave of last year when he came to the Titans. It looked really good. I think that was an apt comparison. But generally, it does feel like, they're picking up a contenders player. It's going to be like kind of meh or whatever. But Aspire, I feel like there was a bit of a boon contenders players around the world that they can come into the Overwatch League and actually run some good performances. So
yeah, it's only a boon though if they actually have pathways in as well. A lot of the teams have created not the most optimal rosters that they could have done at the beginning of this year.
Do you think Aspire stays with Toronto?
I could legitimately see this Toronto is the only team currently where it would maybe even make sense to keep Aspire because he had such a good performance because the team is not that good anyways, you know? Like
but they already have logics for this exact role.
I mean, I'm just saying I could just say Evan who?
Hisu.
Oh yeah. Hisu. I mean, I'm just saying like there is since this team's already doing bad and it's clear they at least would be willing to invest money to do so. It might work, right? But like Titans not gonna do it unless someone dies. Titans aren't gonna do it unless Titans not gonna do it unless someone dies. Like there's nothing. It's not like
why is death the prerequisite?
Okay, someone retires. Yeah, too. Someone has a career death. The point being is that the player is gone from the league and cannot play.
Right.
And they're not gonna get another body in there because like they just won't.
I mean, think just retired on the spot. So maybe someone else will retire, and then you can just slot this guy in.
Yeah, does anyone know if Aspire plays Tracer? I don't know enough about his player career.
I don't know.
If he was also a good Tracer, then I think it does make sense for Boston to at least consider it because they have had a mixed language roster before.
Sure.
So they have the system in place. They were still performing all right when that was the case as well. And he fills what is currently a very large gap for them when it comes to Tracer play.
Sure.
If you were to go strictly by his Wikipedia, which obviously is always the greatest source of information.
Of course.
Tracer, Ashe, Hanzo, Widow, McCree.
Okay. I mean, in that case, actually, now that you bring up the Tracer, Boston makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense to me now that the Tracer part is out in the open because you get a player that is good, but also most importantly can play Tracer for them in certain metas. But I still find Boston, their best looks have been when they're all Korean.
That's true.
And you want the communication there. And I think I'm 37. I have like just a hair in my mouth. I don't know what's happening. But I still think that also I'm 37 has a lot to show still now that he's going to be in a better environment, I think, with their current meta situation and also being all Korean. Not that it really matters for him specifically, just more the rest of the team around him.
Right.
So I'm still mixed on that idea myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Put him on the Outlaws.
Put him on the Outlaws. To replace Happy.
No. I feel like he would just fit in with the Outlaws.
He's not a piece of furniture. We're not building a room.
Oh, look at this.
We're making a team.
Cool.
Okay, I'm moving on. We're going towards APAC. Let's go in the APAC direction. The Seoul Dynasty. They were playing some interesting stuff. We theorized about the Hog, and what are you double thumbs in yourself for?
Remember I said how Dynasty would win because the meta's stupid.
We also you were one of the people that you failed to predict Dynasty effectively last week.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that, but you literally incorrectly picked. Yeah,
put
one of those down.
I'll put one down.
I predicted them in both their games. Yeah, it's. They also ran Gesture Marvel at some point, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah, Marvel Sario.
Yeah, which.
Marv 1? Don't you love Marv 1 and the fact that he doesn't play main tank?
The Marv 1 off tank is giving me flashbacks, terrible flashbacks. I hate the fact that it happened. I hate it. I absolutely just fundamentally hate it.
I'd sold Dynasty
preparing him for 5-on-5.
I told you last week it happened. Just accept it, dude.
No, I'm not.
Dynasty refuses to do the right thing. They refuse.
They're getting ready for a 5-on-5.
And yet they still win some of those times, but they're not laying the groundwork for success in different metas in the future.
There's never groundwork with Dynasty.
No, there isn't.
Dynasty does not believe in the ground. They don't believe in the ground. They fly solely in the sky on private jets with Gesture and his buku bags.
Yeah, Gesture went from like we always talked about as God tier Winston, and now all we talk about is he's fucking out there playing Roadhog and his fucking
Roadhog is fantastic.
Necklace. Yeah, his Roadhog is great.
They'll stop playing this garbage.
Will they?
To me, when I look at this, it feels like APAC is way behind, but also because this meta is so unusual, the hero pools make it wonky, and North America has also not figured stuff out completely. I don't know whether that's just my own ignorance of what is actually good right now in the weird world that the Overwatch League is living in without those heroes available. Do you have that same impression, Jonathan? Do you feel like APAC is behind right now with the meta?
Yeah, I think they're behind. I feel like Hangzhou Spark, it was a false shepherd when they play their Reaper Brawl composition.
Like Bren on the trail for pizza.
Yes.
On the trail for pizza. Yeah, like they won those matches, and I'm like, I don't know how good this is going to be long term. But maybe it is good. I don't know. I feel like Shanghai Dragons here, in a way, they even admitted in an interview, and they were like, yeah, NA Orisa comps is the way to go. And so I'm like, oh, I have some faith in the APAC region because I think they'll maybe play some of this. But maybe a team will start playing just like Winston comps. Like if Seoul Dynasty, next week decided we're gonna play Winston, Profit's gonna be on the Echo, and we're just gonna like play aggressive like Dallas Fuel and Shock. Like I could see that work for them. Like why not? But
yeah, Fate tweeted.
Yeah, that's a great
he
pause.
said okay. Yeah, he said okay. NA comp was right.
It's weird as well because North America again appears to be. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it appears to be trending more in the Morello direction, which, if memory serves, even though APAC loves playing Winston comps and did all last year, I can't remember many APAC teams that loved playing Moira Lucio Winston comps. It was much more around the slower pace double bubble and like trying to set up your Winston as much as possible. Can you guys remember like APAC teams that used to play a lot of Moira Winston? I'm thinking back to, for example, the playoffs at the end of last year, where teams like the Philadelphia Fusion and the Florida Mayhem were playing Moira Lucio like rush dive compositions with the Tracer Sombra. It never caught on in APAC. Teams were playing the Hog instead in APAC, like a lot. It just feels like for some reason they aren't on board with playing really fast-paced rush dive.
Yeah, maybe they just don't. You don't really see a ton of Moira in general from the APAC teams. Maybe they just don't value the Moira at all.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the reason is.
To be fair, like these comps, their synergies for them are nonsense. It's just like NA teams like realize that the power of Ooga Booga. And like the comps themselves are generally kind of nonsense. It's just like the fact that they just happen to work well with the current hero pools, and we can run at them and just isolate people. And I think APAC in general is always been. I mean, we see it in like. I mean, honestly, this is like a wider esport discussion of how like Korea in general Korea and China and such approaches video games and esports from a competitive level as opposed to like North American teams. And so I think that's part of the reason. I also think it's like the masterminds behind it. Like, how many masterminds of GOATs are currently in APAC?
I guess 0, actually.
Yes. Yeah. Compared to North America, where there's a lot more European and even like Korean, like with Krusty and such influence of the like GOAT mindset and realizing the power of focus fire. I just think the mindsets about the game and how they approach it are very, very different. And so it's going to reflect your composition choices.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting as well, though, that to bring up the idea of it being like culturally different, because so many of the North American teams are run by Korean.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a more important point, I think, in the fact that like they have now dealt with the GOATs culture and like the culture brought it from Europe and North American teams with GOATs and such. And, even like even though they're not here anymore, but dealing with Runaway, right? When the Runaway was a thing and under Titans. So I think it's more of just they've been exposed to these comps and this way of thinking far more than the APAC region has entirely. And there's no current coaches or players that were currently huge GOATs proponents. I mean, the entire Dragons said, like, let's play Triple DPS, fuck GOATs. So, right?
Although that was an entirely different team. Also,
it was an entirely different team with a different coach.
Yeah.
But the point being is that, like,
you had Moon coaching Valiant, now coaching Dragons.
Well, Valiant run Triple DPS. Yeah,
you said fuck the GOATs. Exactly. That's the point being is, like, there's no proponents of that style, really, in APAC.
Yeah. Actually, was Moon even coaching the Valiant at that point? It might have been Pac and Ten and Gumber. I can't remember.
Wouldn't the 9K for Shock and the Fusion now?
Yes. The Fusion, though, are different or at least I think they seem different. Like when Christopher does interviews or talks about things, he looks at a lot of North American stuff and said that, but the thing is that it doesn't actually seem to manifest in how the team itself plays. But he believes that a lot of things are strong, that the team of Philly don't end up playing. So I don't know where the disconnect is happening there. It also might just be that they don't have the personnel because they don't have all of their players in the same area. So they might be having to lean into player strengths more so than
but that's
styles.
my hypothesis is the essentially have they contacted a greater goat civilization yet? And like in terms of like
Philly are definitely a team that enjoyed last year playing Moira Lucio. When I talk about APAC, I'm kind of thinking about last year's APAC, where Philly have moved over this year. So that could be a team that I could see bringing the wave forwards of the Echo Reaper stuff if they wanted to try and do that. But
even so, they're 0-2 this stage, and they have to beat Guangzhou and Valiant. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it feels like APAC is even more open in terms of the meta than NA is.
Can we just officially designate Dynasty as like, this is a coin flip? Whatever this team does is entirely coin flip. And if it's a random meta where Gesture can ball out of control and Prophet and Fitz can fuck, because that's honestly the best part about Dynasty consistently is their DPS. Prophet and Fitz are really good.
But it's not a coin flip to say, because
no, it is a coin flip.
But we knew, or we thought very heavily, that they would be good in this upcoming meta.
Yes.
Well, that's not a coin flip. That was predictable.
It was predictable that the meta shifted that way after we saw the meta. But if the meta had gone a different way where Gesture couldn't do that, they'd probably not be good, right? Or who knows? Maybe they could be good. I don't know. This team, I'm telling you, something's up. Something's up. The org is on like some sort of like
you're like fucking Scooby-Doo.
Like cursed burial site is where the Jinji headquarters is, and it's influenced them. Like this org.
I agree with Avast. This team is they just do so much fucking odd shit that doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing as last year, though. Like,
yes,
they just like Pepe it around the whole year, and then all of a sudden, Gesture just fucking Instalux Roadhog in the playoffs, and it just magically clicks and magically end up on Roadhog main tank, and like they ascend.
Look at this. Look at this. Gesture Marvel Ball.
People everywhere. I mean, come on, like. I don't know.
To be fair, that's actually not even like the word, because at least Marvel's on main tank.
Well,
at least Marvel's on main tank.
Matt, give us a smooch again. What are you doing?
So the camera is so heavy. It's the one that we use for the league, and it's in my mount. And when it angles down towards me, it weighs so much that it comes down.
That's a chunky, big DSLR camera kind of thing. And it's like, you haven't got it tight enough, so it's flopping around and falling and stuff.
Those really
crazy expensive.
Aren't those really expensive too?
I have it very tight.
It can't be very tight. It's falling all over. It's floppy. It's flaccid.
No.
I mean,
we watched it.
I mean,
we watched it.
Let's just move on. I don't even want to talk about Seoul Dynasty. Legitimately, I hate talking about this team. I hate talking about them.
All right.
No joke.
Who are you? He debuted for Shanghai. I can't believe I'm saying these words, but Who Are You is on the Shanghai Dragons to replace Erster and, to replace whoever he comes in for, replacing Fleder in this game. But he debuted, he played. I feel like I am stuck back in the year 2016. It is incredibly odd that we have Pine and Who Are You about to make their season debuts this year for such unusual teams. Hello, Doggo.
The Titans should have brought in Miro.
Yeah, bringing Miro back.
Well, I mean, Changsik as well. Changsik isn't as well known as the others, but he still took a 2-year break from the league.
Yeah. He hasn't. We were doing one of those Indeed player resumes, and I was like, all these accomplishments like 2018. His game's like he hasn't played. I was like,
no,
he literally hasn't played since 2019. But I mean, Who Are You has also taken a large break. I know that Wolf tweeted about this, saying that he was really excited to see Who Are You play for Shanghai.
Is Wolf going to say anything other than that?
I don't know, because I think that Wolf very much romanticizes the Apex days and the people
that's
that
what I'm
were
saying.
very
Is
big
Wolf
back
going to
then.
say anything other than that?
But I don't get it, bro. I don't get it.
I mean, you see him playing over Fleta.
Like, they beat the fucking Valiant. They beat the piss out of the street urchins that were gathered together to rescue the Valiant franchise after they just decided to abandon ship and head to China.
Bro, I could have been playing under Who Are You and we would have beat the Valiant. Come on now.
The Valiant's players, I feel so sorry for, by the way. All of our focus and attention is we're going to get to this later.
Let's just talk about it later. Let's just talk about it later.
Yeah. Let's focus on Who Are You. Johnny, did you watch the game? Did you pay attention to Who Are You?
I have not watched the game. No.
I haven't watched this one either because I've got limited time and I don't have time to watch the Dragons just beat the piss out of the Valiant with a substitute player, but I might go back in the replay viewer and just watch it from Whoru's perspective.
Yeah, I will watch them.
Yeah.
I just haven't found the time yet.
I think this was Molly's first time we saw him with Shanghai, right?
Oh,
they haven't put
yes,
him in that much?
it was Molly's. Like I think, like I thought he'd come out like maybe a map or two, maybe, but
maybe a
might have been
map.
his first.
But I mean, Molly's crazy talented. We've seen Molly before. Molly is really good. So yeah,
I saw bits and pieces. Whoru looked like he was playing Reaper against a team that was falling over. And they I mean, the thing is, you can't even accurately judge it really, because he would essentially have to have such an incredibly bad performance that it would somehow manifest itself versus the Valiant, right?
Yeah.
So there's just no way that it would be impactful enough to really measure it. Like the
I feel bad for the Valiant.
He seemed fine.
Do they run Whoru against other teams like in the June Joust?
If they're gonna play him on Reaper, I would like to know. We have moved from the crusty crack pipe to the moon marijuana, and I just want to know what's happening exactly, because like it's just a weird as fuck pickup. It legitimately is. It makes sense in the context of Erster's retired, so you need a projectile player.
Yeah, and he is like a big dick projectile player.
He is a big dick projectile player. Now, granted, his dick is a little too big in that like it just kind of it unbalances your whole team. You're kind of like tripod in a bit because they have to play around him because of his style. Like I haven't seen Whoru ever actually play the game in a sense that is like modern at all.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I feel like maybe if they wanted to play this like Rush Echo, then maybe Whoru would be like the big dick player you kind of need to replace, a passive Fleta. I don't know. I've just come up with some fun nickname for Fleta that's too passive on Genji and Echo to carry like Summer Showdown.
The flaccid
Fleta.
So you need like the big dick Whoru to just alpha chat it in and just go and press the W button, mouse one, whether it's like as Echo and Genji, because Fleta, I mean, he proved that he couldn't be that Genji for Shanghai last year when they needed to play that aggressive nano Genji kind of style. So maybe Whoru has a slot, although, specializing on one or two heroes playing super aggressive might not be the way to get into the starting roster, but we'll see.
Yeah. I just don't know what to think about when they play against like genuinely top teams.
It's just we're waiting to see.
Yeah, I'm intrigued though. If we end up with Shanghai Dallas again in the finals for the June Joust, like a repeat, we could have Pine against Whoru. What world are we fucking living in where that could be the repeat of the May Melee finals with those players? I feel like I've been stuck in a time loop and like bits of the past are seeping into my reality and causing problems interdimensionally.
It is a TV show, and they're like bringing back characters. It's like, that guy's back from season 2. I mean,
it's like WWE where they bring in these fucking old wrestlers for like a one-off. Like The Rock comes in and is the champion for like 2 months, and they give him some kind of match. Like it feels like that. Yeah, we're they should bring back Eska for like a tournament.
Oh my god, Eska never played in the Overwatch League either, so that would be literally an Overwatch debut.
Yes,
that would be. The Apex fans would be actually creaming on the spot. They just immediately
Dude, why don't they bring in Zumba for a tournament?
Dude, straight up, Zumba was so good. Zumba was so good too. I miss Zumba.
Legends. It's like from that team. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
it was just you just had to go to Seoul.
Well, I wanted to talk. We started talking about this earlier on when I was talking about how sorry I feel for the Valiant, but the Valiant, the London Spitfire, the Vancouver Titans,
potato showings.
They all have 0 wins so far this season, right? They all are still sat at 0 wins. Now, our lower third here only says the Valiant and the Vancouver Titans because London, to me, have not been potato level, despite the fact that they've only got 1 win. They were potato at the beginning. They had a very potatoy beginning, but they've managed to transition into being at least a yam at this point. They're providing
potential.
They do have the worst map differential out of the teams. But
that's crazy to me, actually. That is crazy.
It's not crazy to me.
That's not crazy. I mean, they look competent recently.
They're
in the June Joust, they've looked competent.
Okay, so they have 2 more games played than the Titans and the Valiant.
Oh, well, that's the only reason that they have the worst map differential.
That's why it wasn't crazy to me.
Oh, right, because you'd already run the fucking numbers in your head, had you?
Well, I just knew they'd play more matches.
Oh, okay, well, fair enough.
The Valiant have only won 1 map, but the Titans and the Spitfire have won the same amount of maps.
Yeah,
which
that's
is kind of crazy.
But the thing is, the Titans actually didn't have the worst ever May Melee performance.
Yeah.
They looked serviceable on certain compositions, like specifically the Ryan Sigma kind of rush compositions. They were doing okay. They won a map off the
Didn't
Mayhem.
they beat the Justice in a map?
They beat Justice in the map as well. Yes, they took a map off Justice. Yes, correct.
But,
Vancouver, yeah.
And
but that was Washington over poo.
Both of those teams were struggling on rush at the time, Mayhem and Justice. But at least Vancouver were good enough to be able to get that win. The game that Vancouver had this week that was the 3rd fastest game of all time. I can't even remember who the fuck they were playing against.
Atlanta, right? Oh no, Atlanta.
No, it wasn't.
Atlanta.
It wasn't the Gladiators
Atlanta.
game.
Yeah,
it was
it
the
was
Atlanta.
Atlanta. That's what it was. Yeah.
And the Atlanta game, the 3rd fastest match of all time, and Atlanta also started on attack for one of those maps. So, I mean, we are talking brutally, undescribably bad Overwatch being played. They won by me tracking it. I didn't look at the stats, but from my memory, they won 1 team fight, and it was on defense of Anubis. The stats might say that they won a different team fight on the first map, but they didn't win it. They just slowly lost it. And they managed to flip the point in the middle of that. So they really only won 1 team fight, and it was on defense of point B of Anubis. And outside of that, it felt like they didn't turn up. I don't mean that in like the normal sports way where they're like, oh, you know, we just didn't turn up on the day. I mean that they felt like they were physically not in the server. It felt like there was no resistance to the Atlanta rain, that Atlanta were just plowing through them. This was the most one-sided game I can remember. And apparently in the league history, there have been 2 that are more one-sided. I don't know who the fuck those were.
I believe Valiant New York the night before was number 2.
Yep. Literally the night before. And then the first one is Vancouver Shock last year. When Shock just snowballed over Vancouver after they got picked up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So Vancouver are now 2 of the top 3 fastest matches losing side.
Second, Vancouver Titans are 2 of the top 3 in a world where we had a 0-40 team in our season.
They had to play 4 maps.
To be fair, they always had to play 4 maps. Yes.
That is a great point. That does change
the narrative a bit. So
yes, it definitely does.
It's still
every map mattered.
I would like to go. I would like someone to go back and maybe equal, like, if they can figure out, like,
the first 3 maps, I think, is a good way of doing it.
Yeah, just take like the first 3 maps and just see what happened.
At the point where the series was over, right? Because that might not be, they didn't always get 3-0'd, but yeah.
No, I mean, they did a lot, though. So, like, pretty much whichever of the first 3 maps on a 3-0 and take, like, the average Shanghai map time, if someone did that and compared it to the current Vancouver, like, as an organization since they released Runaway, and just compare it over it. And I still have a distinct feeling, though, because this is just also my personal feeling. The Shanghai roster in 2018 was still handled with more love and care than this roster.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, the Shanghai roster in 2018 was a madman's fever dream that was put together, right, by like Undead and U4 and shit. Like, they just did some crazy shit and built a roster that was awful because
there was also a lot of like nepotism involved.
Yeah, exactly. They were just off the goop. They were just off the fucking goop with it. But this roster is like, when you make a box and it's like fragile, handled with care. Like, I got a bunch of pottery in here, you know. Like, this is like when your delivery person just punting it as they go. That's what they're doing with all the care for this roster.
Season one Shanghai. I'll never forget this. We were doing like a Q&A, I think, with some of the coaches, and I think it was like either Monty or Doa, but somebody was like, so we noticed like all of your supports are like Lucio players, like who's gonna play the Zen? And they're like, oh well, we'll figure it out. And then it was like all your DPS seemed to be McCree players, like who would play like a Genji or something. They're like, oh, we believe all our players have the talent to do that. And I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be good. It's like, this is not gonna go.
Oh my god,
gonna go
poor
well.
miraculous youngsters. Actually robbed.
They
will never stop
I will
talking
say,
about that.
the worst game I think I've cast in the Overwatch League, I remember this very distinctly, was a Seoul Dynasty Shanghai match in season 1 with Ryu J Kong, where he was playing the Winston. and what I mean, it was so bad. Shanghai had won a map, but you knew that they weren't going to win the series, but you were still kind of like, ooh, can they do it? And like everybody was just wandering around. There was no play together whatsoever. It was a mess.
When I was casting the game, right, the Atlanta Vancouver game, I was overcome by sadness. At the end of the match, I felt like I had to give like a little fucking PSA to the players of like, you can't give up now. If you give up, you will never win if you feel like you're downtrodden now and you allow it to get into a negative spiral, you're going 0-16 the whole season, and it only gets worse, and your career is done, right? That is genuinely what you're fighting for right now. In every single game, you're fighting to keep your mentality up so that if there is an opportunity down the road, you can capture it. If you just write off the whole of June as being like, oh, fuck it, we're not going to turn up, and we're not going to even really bother putting our brains into practice, you're going to be bad in July. You're going to be bad in August because you've just wasted a month. And then you're going to lose every single match that you ever have access to. And you're going to just fucking hate your life. The
first game on the last day of the season is Spitfire Titans.
It's the battle. It's literally the grand finals.
Could they go into that series, both of them with no wins?
No, Sparkle will make this team come alive.
I think it's very possible they both don't get wins.
Well, London also plays against Paris before they play against Vancouver. They play in that same week.
Yeah, I think that's literally the grand finals of the toilet bowl. It is actually the grand finals.
But yeah, the Valiant, I mean, also just getting shit pounded, but for much more reasonable. To me, I can't possibly feel any kind of ill will towards the Valiant players at all, because those, I mean, how do you succeed in a system where the Valiant's org has just decided to move ship and pick up whoever the hell they could? You knew what you were getting yourself into. Like, that's why Dia didn't go for this team, because he knew that they were just going to lose all of their games. And at least their players have been like, there are some flashes of goodness with Crystal and Mulanran. Like, they're looking okay. Yeah. But when I watch the Titans play these most recent games, they look flat as a fucking pancake. They look mentally battered. They look like all the hope has gone from their eyes. And that to me is not, like, the Titans had an opportunity this year to make things different. They did. And they did not. And I mean that both in terms of the organization and the players. And it feels like they've just given up already.
How many new players did they bring in? They brought in Linkser. They brought in Teru. They brought in FRD
to replace Shredlock, who retired, so he wasn't really part of the equation originally.
Right. Yeah, you can't count that.
So they bring in Chunsik. They brought in Fire.
Fried Wiener.
And Fire. They brought in, like, most of the team is new, right?
They decided to get people who...
But they didn't keep Shockwave, which, I mean, Shockwave probably is like, I'm out. Like...
Also, Teru doesn't get played all the time, so including him in thinking about it as like a starting roster is...
Yeah, because
they still have Dalton too, right?
Yeah, they still have Dalton.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I think you're approaching this from the wrong angle, because I don't think Titans did attempt to change anything.
I said they had an opportunity.
Oh, they had an opportunity.
He said they had an opportunity.
That's fair. Yeah, they did have an opportunity. I mean, I also had an opportunity to be an NBA player, but I wasn't good enough.
No, you didn't even try.
Neither did they.
But you're saying it as if it's a ridiculous, unattainable thing by making the analogy to yourself being an NBA player. They are in the exact same situation as every other team in the league. If they choose not to invest in talent, that's fine. You can still pick up players who have more potential or are driven, or try and create a culture of getting people who are really hungry. I don't know, man. If you look at the Titans players, I understand that they are in the toughest position possible. They're getting battered every fucking week. My mental could not handle that either. But when you're starting a team like that, you've got to realize that if you begin failure, you have to work your way out of it. You can't just you can't plank. Like when you watch London, like what Custer was saying on the desk, right? After the game. The London players are very, very actively fighting against their losing record. The Titans have lost the plot. Like recently, they've lost the plot. They don't understand the meta. They don't, for whatever, like whether it's their coaches or whatever, they don't understand what they should be doing. The players aren't performing. They don't have a clue. They won a single team fight in the game against Atlanta. That's not the same. They're in a different tier of failure.
Well, what I think though, you look at like, if you're London, you're clearly like, you have some bright spots that you can be excited about. Like even in your losses, right? You have some players there that you feel good about for the future. I even think for the Valiant, I think Crystal's been good. I think Alonron's looked pretty decent. I also just don't think, at least from like the little we know, they haven't been able to get great practice. I mean, who's practicing them in the APAC region? If they try and practice Contenders teams, it's hard because Contenders doesn't have the hero pool. So like the practice is much harder, I think, for a team like the Valiant than either London or the Titans.
Well, I mean, but why?
But at least there's some players here that you feel like, okay, like next season, maybe if we, swap out some pieces, Crystal played pretty well. We can keep him. I think for the Titans, the player different. The Titans, the players you were excited about are gone from last year, right? KSA looked all right. Shockwave looked good. Shockwave's gone. KSA's gone. Dalton's still on the team, but he's not playing at all.
He is playing a lot of ranked, so I don't know why Dalton isn't playing. I mean, if it's like a management kind of decision or what.
Yeah, it's probably just difficult even for the players. Like, you have to know that's not your final destination, right? So it's hard, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's different situations, right? Because Valiant, I feel like, as you said, they have a couple of good players, but I feel like they've just gotten kind of owned by their management, by having Silver 3 as main tank, and the tank line and support line is kind of miserable in that regard. And there were some rumors on Reddit today. I don't want to speak to them because they were pretty dire and serious allegations, but I don't know what the source is, so I don't want to speak to them too much. But it feels like the Valiant situation is just like management maybe has something to do with putting together the roster and whatnot. Whereas with the Vancouver Titans, I mean, as you said, it's just like the players doesn't feel like they're showing up to practice. And again, as Josh said as well, like, it's tough, right? As a player, if you just lose all the time, practice argument like Matt laid forward that you can't get good practice because Contenders, they can't practice the hero pool, and like it's hard to find screen pointers in the Overwatch League. But yeah, I mean, as Mitch said, like at some point you just gotta get angry and just like, hey, I want to be good at this game, or I'll just retire and go stream or do whatever, And you have to make that decision and not just, go through the motions, get a paycheck, and then that's going to be the end. Like there genuinely, there are some players on the Vancouver Titans who would have a better shot at getting an out contract in Overwatch 2 if they immediately retired from the Titans and started playing in Contenders in a more competitive, more competitive team. That would be more consistent practice. Not as much pressure to perform. Your resume would look better if you retired for competitive reasons and actually went to Contenders and competed at the top of that, rather than just losing like 16 matches in a row, whatever, if you're on the Titans. So at some point, these players have to decide, are we going to like take this really seriously, get dirty, practice a lot, and try to do the best we can? Or are you just going to fall flat and just go through the motions and that's it? I don't have any insight to, the motivations of the players. Maybe they are practicing their ass off. But I think we'll see that in the coming months anyway. What the team looks like, how the players reflect on social media, etc. So we'll find that out. But at some point, it's upsetting. Yeah,
you can get angry all you want and want to win all you want. If your team doesn't have the skill to be able to overcome some of these other teams, that it doesn't matter, right? But I think there are some talented players on this team, but maybe as a collective, they just do not. They are not there.
But that, I mean, right there is one of the reasons why nobody believed in the Vancouver Titans at the beginning of the season, right? Is because the player pickups we didn't think had much potential. But also, though a lot of those players have at least shown competence in the past. Like Fried has been competent in the past. Fire has been somewhat competent. Lynx has been somewhat competent.
Lynxer we've seen be good.
So they're not at their peaks right now, and they're not great players. but they should be able to put something together, anything. And that to me is like the level of incompetence from the team as a whole right now implies that they are much worse than those players have ever been in the past. And that is worrying.
All those players have been in better team situations, though.
Yeah.
But if every player has been on a better team situation, when you bring them together, that would be like if you picked the worst player from every team.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's just like they're just not built for this environment. Like, I could pick the most beautiful fish in the ocean, and like it's had all this time to swim and be free. And I'm like, listen, you're really good at swimming. How does some mud sound? And I'm just gonna throw you in some mud. You're gonna try to flop around there, right? Like,
but these players are still put in the same situation.
They're not though, because all those players succeeded in environments that were at the core. The environment was a team trying to win, even if they had like not the best team. Even if the team, like all those players previously in the past have been in situations where this team's had hope. I don't think the Titans have any hope. I don't think they have hope. I don't think this roster to me is a stopgap because there's no relegation.
Yeah, and that I think is the crux of the issue, is that it feels like it was built without the desire to win. It feels like this team was built without any attempt.
And also, they didn't revamp the coaching staff at all from last year either, by the way. I think they like dropped one coach maybe. I don't think they really revamped coaching staff. Like, it's like Lynx and Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws had a chance to win at point. Like, they had built teams and a player, and like they had issues. They weren't that good, but they like definitely were like still wanting to win, and like there was hope for them there to win. And then the next years we look forward, Houston was going to win to like try to get better. They were going to try to get better still, right? Like Dalton with Toronto Esports, like there was always these situations where there was hope to get better in the future. I want you seriously to tell me, what is the hope and trajectory of the Vancouver Titans?
Oh no, you need to start over again.
No.
You need to start over again.
Start over again with who though? But
if you're a player, it's not so much as hope, but you have to avoid ruining your reputation. That's what you're playing for. It seriously is.
I think when I watched that match too, I felt like the players, they may have been getting rolled. They weren't doing anything team wise, but like when you watch the cams, like they were common. They were trying to like. It wasn't like they were just like in team.
Yeah.
Like they were playing the game. It's just the team's not good. The team's really bad. The mental's crushed. Everyone's way better than them. And there's no hope that anyone's going to come help bail them out.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, I don't see a team that's given up. I see a team that's just accepted the situation and they're just going through the motion. Right?
That's the same as giving up.
It's not giving up. Because giving up to me would be like, you're not even attempting to calm or like do anything else. Like, there's just only so much you feel like as an individual you can do that situation. And I just don't think there's anyone there that's going to pull that team out of that.
You feel for the players. It's a tough spot for them to be in. Being a competitor, like that's just one of the spots that just sucks. Especially when you go into matches and you're going to be outmatched in them. You have to put your best foot forward, but to do that week in, week out is brutal.
Yeah.
Where for them to find some, I think, like whether it's hope or something that they can build upon, whether it's individually or as a team, that becomes difficult to do, especially as you go deeper and deeper down the road, where I'm sure they know that London's not to their last week, where they would love to try and get a win where they feel like they could. And
I mean, say what you want
about that. Yeah, what?
About the 2018 Shanghai Dragons. At least they tried to get like a mid-season injection by getting Fearless, Gregory, and the DPS player. I can't recall his name.
They got Otto.
Otto, and they got someone else.
Oh, Damon.
Damon. Oh, God.
Yeah. So like they had a mid-season injection with like some players who were like, hey, this is going catastrophically. That was the first season of the Overwatch League, so maybe there was more pressure to do that, but at least had some kind of like injection to the system. Even the Titans, like, but they would need that kind of like leadership figure to come in.
Of washed up into their system.
Well, the Titans are going to get injections because I wonder what happens when you just keep. How many players can retire before a team ceases to exist? Is my question.
I mean, Shredlock has retired and they replaced him not with somebody that's going to add drive to the team, but somebody who has never played for 2 years. They're like actively
and also wasn't that great
making
when they were
it worse.
Playing, by the way.
That's like a brutal addition to a team.
Exactly.
I feel like the way you have to do it is
it would have to be like Gig. You're not picking up Kalush.
Or they have to just wait until they can get a whole team from contenders, like what London did, and bring an entire team in. Because if you're, let's say, go back to the last offseason, use this for like, if you're Mag, you're not going to go to the Titans. You're going to wait. So you feel like you have better opportunities. Like if you're one of the top players, unless somebody is willing to bring you and your whole squad in there, which is kind of what they're going to need to do.
Yeah.
I think there's also hope for the Valiant, by the way. Not for this year. I think this is washed for them. In the future, I think this current Valiant iteration exists because this team was put together because the parent company cared so little about their players or their standing that they were willing to just throw it all away and just like fuck over everybody and like just throw bodies onto this roster so we have them in requirements. Like that's literally what happened with Valiant. And like I think but I think the people running the Valiant organization, which I think is like LGE or like some other like partnership group, I can't remember which one it is, but it's some Chinese company.
Yeah, I think it's LGE.
That company will probably actually attempt to build a competent roster the next year when they have time to do so. It's just when you have essentially the span of like 2 weeks to build a roster before the season after roster lock.
After rosters are already been locked.
It's just not possible. It's literally not possible. And have no budget.
And they're not starting from like, and I'm actually kind of in the same boat with the Valiant. Like, I don't think they'll be starting at ground zero like how the Titans are. Like, you can keep Mulleran, you can keep Crystal. Shochin's been okay. You get new supports, you get a new main tank. You're not the best in APAC, but are you then able to contend with some of those other teams? Probably. You can at least have closer games, be somewhere near a 500 record. I think you could.
Yeah, it's fucked, man. It's fucked.
It also doesn't help that the league is just stronger overall this year than they probably ever has been. So the teams that are bad are getting they're getting punished.
They are getting absolutely pummeled. And the other part of that too is that they haven't faced each other yet. So we haven't had those bottom level teams.
I gotta say though, I am.
Are you looking forward to it?
I do. I enjoy toilet, and to have a grand finals tournament. We have yet to have a grand finals.
If the Valiant were in that, would the Valiant be? How do you think that would go?
London win. At the moment, right now, I think London win between the teams that don't have any wins. I think London takes it. To me, I think it goes London, Valiant, Titans right now. But that would have been different in the May Melee. Like if we'd done it in the May Melee, it probably would have been like Titans, Valiant, probably Titans, Valiant, London.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I'm concerned about with the Titans is that they look like they're on a downwards trajectory mentally. And that means that they're never going to have these like meta fluctuations again in the future. That could be wrong. They might just be shit in this meta and there's nothing they can do and they'll bounce back in the next one. I hope that's the case though, because if you're mentally going downhill now, you're done for. Like even if you get a meta where you're good in the future, you're already just going to be out of it. Like there's no way that you bounce back.
So they the Titans play the Shock on Friday.
Looks good.
Fuck me.
And then they play. Okay. And then they play the Fuel. I mean, dude, they have a 4-game stretch. Get this, a 4-game stretch of Gladiators, Brain, Shock, and Fuel. I mean, that is fucking brutal.
Well, I mean, they have to prove they're a top team, so they're gonna have to play against some of the best.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They're going for the entirety of the top 3, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. But their next tournament though, as Boston, Toronto, Paris, and Houston.
Well, but just to think about that schedule though for a second. If you're a Vancouver Titans player, you're coming into the June Joust. There's hero pools, and you have to play against Atlanta Gladiators, Dallas Shock. I can imagine that as a player, I might look at that and go, "Why the fuck are we even playing scrims in June?
Yeah.
We are not going to gain anything because when we come back out of it again in July, it's back to old meta. Why are we even bothering practicing this shit?" But I think you need to at least be trying to be the best that you can possibly be so that you don't fall into the trap of just giving up. Like, that's what I'm worried about.
Really good practice. You have to treat it as really good practice, and just be like, what are the lessons we can draw from this? And sure, you might not even like play extremely hard to like win, even though you should most of the time, but just like treat it as 3 maps against the San Francisco Shock where you could put forth your best, try out something, or like...
You're probably not getting scrims against them.
Because you're not getting scrims like the Shock, right? So, you know, maybe the Shock aren't playing seriously. It doesn't even matter. At least it's some kind of, you know, practice against some good opponent. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have insight into their practice conditions currently, but you just have to look at that as some kind of practice and just like, even if you go into that schedule and you're like, this is impossible, like, why do we even bother? Do some like self-reflecting, you know, within your own practice and be like, okay, well, June Joust is a wash for us. Like, we're not going to bother. We're going to take this time to work on our team our own way with Countdown Cup in mind or whatever. Maybe they are doing that. I don't want to say that they aren't doing that. Maybe they are. I don't know. Look, I'm just speculating. But yeah, regardless, you got to treat this as practice that can be really worthwhile and just focus on your own game and go next tournament.
We could be overreacting,
you know, too hard for you
because everyone's so much better and the meta's so bad for them that like maybe they just had a really rough series.
Yeah,
could be overreacting. I mean, because
they did also get pummeled in the Gladiators.
Yeah, but they got pummeled, but it wasn't like the fastest game ever, right? Like, but they get pummeled.
No,
and like also like last stage, they did better. They did all right and took some key. Like, okay. Legitimately, this entire thing could be just like we're being histrionic of like, okay, we're like, what's going on here?
Could be,
but also if the writing's on, if that happens, if you have the 3rd fastest match ever and you still have not even won a series,
you haven't played against Shock and Dallas,
and
as
you
well.
haven't played against any good team, like any of the
better.
best teams, like it's looking rough.
It's looking rough. Okay, let's move on.
Looking slow.
We've got some power rankings to do. We're bringing them back. Week 3 June Joust power rankings. Bring them up, baby. Bring them up. Are we separating these regionally? I feel like we should, right? I feel like power rankings
That's
only
what
make
we
sense
always after the
combined
Hawaii.
after.
After Hawaii, you should do them combined.
That's a very cute doggo.
Look at him.
He's very good.
Hugo's very sweet. Yeah, we'll do these separate then. So let's start with North America. Let's go through North America. Who do you guys think is the current best team in NA right now? Are we all aboard the Shock train again?
I think so.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made there's an argument to be made for like, no joke, you could make an argument for like Glads.
They're the only other team I think that you
But the thing is that Shock just has so much data behind it, and I feel so strongly for this meta for them, and they played Dallas, like it has to be Shock. You know?
Did you put Glads number 2?
No, 3. You put Dallas second. You have to,
I might put Glad second.
I think I would put Gladiators.
Yeah, I would put Glad second.
Yeah, I might put Glad second myself.
Here's the thing.
I disagree with that.
There's only a small amount of data available for the Shock.
I mean, we don't have that much data right now.
I think the way that the Gladiators are playing is not, I don't know. Okay, I mean, the Dallas Fuel could definitely beat them, absolutely. They might beat the piss out of them in that Reaper Echo mirror, in fact, if the Gladiators feel like they're forced over there. But I do think that there's like a serious hole in the way that Dallas are playing right now. And also, we're not sure whether the Orisa comps are better than the Winston comps. So if the Orisa comps end up playing out, then I think Gladiators look a lot stronger in that circumstance.
Yeah, but I feel like I want to see that from Gladiators first. Like, I don't want to jump the gun and just be like, well, Gladiators have shown some double shield play. And again, like that Atlanta Reign series, I think that was really close, and Atlanta Reign could have easily won it too. And then we'd be like the opposite, be like, well, Gladiators are like 5th or whatever. So I feel like I don't want to jump the gun and be like immediately, well, Glads are better than Fuel.
I think based off their previous performances and what the meta was like last stage for them, we would be safe to put Dallas 2.
Because they did very, very well.
And also, I don't think the meta last stage was so vastly different than it is this stage. It's more of just
would you then put the Gladiators 3rd then?
Yeah.
I would put Glads 3rd.
Who have Dallas beaten?
Yeah.
In the June Joust? I can't remember.
No, they've only played 2 matches. They lost to the Shock and they beat London.
Yeah, they beat London. They pounded London, yeah.
That to
I don't know. I mean,
I still want the Gladiators.
I think if we're putting Fuel there, it's historical. If we're going to put Fuel too.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm associated with this fucking rankings.
All right, okay, we'll leave Dallas Fuel at number 2. Otherwise, Jonathan's going to decide to leave because of our
the
power
Gladiators
rankings.
beat the Titans.
Gladiators beat the Titans. Right, well, we'll have Titans at number 4. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Atlanta?
I have been decently high on Atlanta and Houston. Like, I think that they've been okay. Those would be my next teams to start looking at, I think.
I would put... I would almost put the Outlaws above the Reign.
I'd be fine with that.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's a 50-50 kind of, but I
think the Reign. I think the Reign are very
7-1.
good right now. I think they might trend downwards over time, but I think Reign.
I think Outlaws. Outlaws hero pools is. Well, actually, I feel like they've gotten better. Actually, I take that back. I feel like the hero pool they first started to figure out a little bit more as they trend. I still think Outlaws' support line situation is worrying.
But they make it work. We both hate it, Avast. We're both actively, arguing against it. But they make it work.
Do they make it work?
Who have they? I mean, think about their games so far, though. I mean, they've played
probably the easiest strength of schedule.
What about
they
lost to Atlanta? Actually, lost to Atlanta.
They
if you want to pull that argument.
Yeah, that's why.
Why would Outlaws ever go over Atlanta?
Because they fucking played some happy Genji and shit. They just threw that match.
Hold on.
That would be the argument.
What about Boston? They have a 3-0 over Toronto in Justice.
Shut up.
They looked good in those games. They haven't
I'm
played
going to also propose I'm also going to propose an alternate theory too, because I'm the only one that ever does that on this podcast when it comes to certain things. Is that this were 4 and 5, right? We're still worrying about 4 and 5. Oh, actually, no. I'm fine with this.
What are you talking about?
Never mind. I'm fine with this. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I do. I mean, Boston are an we do have very little data to go on, and it's hard to tell strength of schedule. I am not high right now on the way that Toronto or Washington have been playing.
Yes.
And I think that while Boston's wins are good, they haven't proven to me that they're great. I think that they're somewhere around that 5th, 6th kind of thing.
I would put
Mayhem 6 for now.
I would put Mayhem.
You put Mayhem above Boston?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. 100%. 100%.
Why are you high on what Florida have brought?
Why am I high on Florida? Well, I mean, it's not that I'm particularly high on Florida right now. It's just they beat Atlanta. Didn't they? Or is it Defiant?
No,
they beat Defiant.
They beat Defiant.
They beat Defiant and they looked okay. They looked okay, but also Mayhem is a team that feels like they start slow in new metas currently. Also, I trust their hero pools entirely. I mean, Yaki, BQB, Pound.
Yes,
their supports are fine. Oh, this hero pool, there's no Rhine, so they don't so when OG's hero pool is good, Gargoyle's really good. I trust their coaching staff. And in addition to all that, Boston has been a Justice that looks really bad, I think, right now. Yeah. Justice look super struggling. Look really and I just trust Boston overall far less than Mayhem.
I think that makes sense. I have not really... I guess I haven't been overly impressed with what either team have been bringing.
I think Mayhem should go over them simply because of the facet that they have had success, they've looked good, and their roster overall is
again, it's just a historic placement similar to Dallas, though. It's not really
It is, but I mean, it is. It's exactly that, but we don't have that much data. And personally, when I look at both these teams, if I'm going to pick a teams that look like they perform roughly the same in my eyes, I'd rather just pick the team that I know will be better long term. That's how I view it.
Yeah. What do you think, Jonathan? Matt?
I mean, I think I would put Boston ahead of Florida right now for the sake that Gil Bolshe looked really good when he got brought in. They haven't dropped any maps so far this tournament. Florida beat London and even dropped a map there and then lost to Houston. I mean, I don't really feel that great about Florida in this tournament. They could easily lose to Dallas.
Really played? Yeah, they did play London actually. Right.
Yeah. They even dropped a map to the
Spitfire. I actually forgot about the London thing. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot about the London thing.
I don't think London look horrific right now, though.
No, but no one should be dropping.
I think it's fine to drop a map to London. Honestly, they haven't looked atrocious. In fact, I would be considering putting London higher than the bottom 2 spot, despite the fact they haven't got a win on the board yet.
What's more impressive so far for this tournament? The Mayhem, who are 1-1 with 3-1 win over London and then a 3-1 loss to Houston, or Boston with a 3-0 over the Justice into 3-0 over Toronto.
But also Mayhem came out in that Houston match as well and dominated the first map, and then Houston just kind of got their shit together.
Yeah, I think
week
that's
one of hero pools was just
that
like
is a control
scam.
difference.
Like,
yeah.
it's so misleading.
Jonathan, what's your opinions? We're currently.
I'm kind of indifferent, to be honest. I could see arguments for both sides.
All right. Well, it's two against one for Boston over Mayhem.
I've actually swapped sides. I'll go to Boston.
Okay. All right.
So, sure. Yeah, I'll go to Boston.
We'll put Boston at number 6 then, and we'll put Florida Mayhem at number 7. At that point, what has Paris been up to, actually? Paris has not been...
Echo.
Yeah, Paris's Echo comp,
really
though.
Echo, yeah.
Naga looked really good, and Paris in general impressed me.
They 3-0 Justice. I think Paris deserved to go above, but they lost to Defiant. So can we really
they lost
say
to Defiant 3-1?
That has to be Defiant. Defiant has to go above them. Like, they literally do. Defiant has to go above them.
Yeah.
But I put Paris above Justice.
I would, yeah.
I put Paris above Justice.
When I watch the Justice
London
right now,
over the Titans.
I am. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that.
I even think.
I'm totally cool with that one.
You're gonna put
you would not put Justice below Spitfire, man. You would not put Justice below Spitfire. You're out. You're off the goop. EU copium out of control.
London hasn't won they haven't won a map.
You're off the goop.
I think that would be a winnable game for London.
You're off the motherfucking goop.
Okay, but they're not better than them.
What has Justice done in the June Joust?
They haven't won a map, I think, either.
They've lost to teams that look decent. Spitfire have lost to everyone ever, always.
But London have also lost to teams that look decent in the June Joust. Right?
But it's London.
Well, I mean, Washington got 3-0'd.
And looked at ancient history, and you just diminished what every country and Reign had accomplished the past 10 years or whatever, and just be like, well, what have they accomplished the past 1 year?
Power rankings for the June Joust.
But I still think Justice looked better than London.
This is how we end up still saying that Johnny's a pro player on the desk. We just acknowledge things that happened, 8,000 years ago.
Yeah, and then you move on.
Yeah,
Justice still looks better than London to me, though.
Do they really in the
They
game?
I don't know.
me.
Shoot, Avast, they got 3-0'd. They got 3-0'd by Paris, and they got 3-0'd by Boston. They played
Both those teams are pretty
Florida
decent.
in the shock.
I don't care. I don't
stage.
care. London is not better than Washington Justice.
Bro,
Paris are above them because they proved it.
That is some historic superstar copium that you're suckling on right now.
But
it's not me suckling on EU copium currently.
No.
If you were looking at individual maps and we're like, oh, they took one map against an average team and used it as proof for being better than Washington Justice.
What I'm saying is, Justice, when I watch them, have no redeeming qualities in terms of how they're playing their compositions right now. The players might be good. They do not understand the meta in the slightest. No redeeming qualities. They have no chances to win against anyone who's even mid-table.
Have you laid fourth Dylan on Spitfire?
London has at least been competent won maps against mid-table teams. They've at least shown
Justice have won maps versus mid-table teams.
In the June Joust, have they? I thought they got 3-0'd.
No, then
they got 3-0'd both.
They got 3-0'd both. They've been getting shit on.
They got 3-0'd by Paris, and they got 3-0'd by
Paris. We're rating them 9th.
By Boston. They got 3-0'd by Paris and Boston.
Well, Boston I think is pretty decent. Paris I think is all.
I think both of those teams are decent though.
I also think with enough time, Paris is gonna. I actually think by the end of the stage, Paris is gonna look like a better team than Defiant. So
I would agree with you there as well. I think
like to me, that's
like a really competent team.
I still to me when I look at London play. Sure, I think they have an overarching. They have like maybe a greater grasp, but at the end of the day, like, are you gonna take the guy? Like, if you're playing the pickup game of basketball, right? And like you're picking your teams. We're doing the YMCA. We're gonna fat kid somebody, right? And like, so at the end of the day, you have the guy that understands the game somewhat decently. He's been playing basketball for a couple years, but he wears flip flops and he's gonna like trip and break his ankle, and he can't hit any jump shots. Or you have the guy that's like super athletic. Like, he's never played basketball before in his life, though. Never played basketball before in his life, but super athletic. He can get up and down that court. He can hit some layups if he gets up there, maybe even sink a couple shots. I'm taking the super athletic kid every time over the guy in flip-flops. Every time. 100% Justice.
By using that logic, you should put Washington above Boston then.
No, I shouldn't.
Because the player quality is better. That's what you're saying. Historic
but
player
Boston
quality.
know how to play basketball. Boston know how to play Overwatch right now, and Justice doesn't.
You're just throwing analogies out there without looking at what's happening.
But I'm not just saying Boston's not better than them because they have better players. They're better than them because they're better.
The only
logic they know how to play.
The only logic you're using for Washington being over London is that their players have been better in the past. Their players are not performing better currently, right now. They're not in the June Joust. They literally are not.
Sure. That is all completely fair.
One map. Against
Florida, they haven't won a map. They haven't won a map in this stage in this tournament.
No, he's talking about Spitfire.
He's talking about
Spitfire won a single map.
London hasn't won a map in this tournament.
But also, even just the closeness of the maps, the team fights they're taking, they have a better idea of what they want to do.
Yeah, but they can't execute. Right? They can't execute.
Justice are actually tortoises. It's like, when I watched the Washington Justice, it's like they went through the fucking Space Jam thing. If you were going to use your basketball analogy, do you want to pick the basketball players from Space Jam who have had all their talent leashed out of their system, or do you pick the tiny little slug aliens? London are the tiny slug aliens, although they haven't gone through their transformation into the Monstars. They're just slugs. But the Washington Justice are actually, they're athletic humans that are wandering around like this. They don't know what the fuck they're doing right now. It is tragic watching them play.
I still think, based off the infinite monkey typewriter theorem of just people just smashing away at the keyboards where eventually Shakespeare comes out, Justice should come out ahead of London every time still.
I hope they do. I hope they do. I really hope they do.
Because also, I rated Justice lowly. If they're that bad, and if they remain bad throughout this stage, that is such a roster failure that is, simply put, it's flying under our radars. How disastrous that is.
That's why I'm bringing it up now, though, is that I think it's already disastrous. I think their performance in the June Joust should be flashing warning bells throughout the entirety of North America. Of like,
it was week one. I'm
on John.
Philly, listen to this. Philly Fusion looked atrocious in APAC in week one.
Bro,
okay,
Philly,
are you just going to say that?
They're
so bad.
massive visa issues. They don't have their main players there. You cannot be comparing that to a Washington Justice team. The people wanted to win the fucking league.
But
these guys
just play really well though last stage, right?
Which was surprising because they had so many problems.
Yeah.
A month ago they beat the Dallas Fuel.
Well, sorry.
A month ago, they beat the Dallas Fuel.
In a different meta. You can't be bringing up main LA performances to justify how well teams are going to play in the June Joust.
But when we don't have enough data points, all we have is historic comparisons in player strength.
And I think it's fair if you're saying that they might bounce back. If we're talking about whether you're going to predict them next week, I think it's fair to say that you could have more faith in the Justice. What I'm saying is, looking at the data of what they have played has been tragic and gives severe problems for how you think about this team in the future. Any kind of fast-paced meta, they suck. They are so slow and ponderous in how they're moving around the map and so uncoordinated as well. They have severe flaws that are now being demonstrated.
They're next.
And just glossing it over and being like, no, the good players. I think is going to bite people in the ass.
Their next 6 games are brutal. Well,
Justice?
They play Florida, Shock, Atlanta, Florida again, London, and then the Gladiators.
I mean, they literally have to play against
that should have been winnable going into this season. Sideshow, can I reason with you, Sideshow? Can we just
please do? I'm too fired up.
Just a pinch of patience, okay? Because we'll be here next Monday recording, and then we will have 2 more matches played by the Washington Justice, and you can happily, nothing is going to change with London, okay? Nothing is going to change because they have no matches, whereas with the Washington Justice, we'll have 2 more matches, and then you can make that swap.
They'll lose both.
And that, I think, is very fair. Who are they playing against, Matt?
Mayhem and Shock.
And the Mayhem.
But it's not about them losing. It's about them
It's
playing.
about how they look.
It's about how they look.
It's about how they actually look.
Yes.
And if they do improve, then I'll retract it. Because my point is not that by the end of the June Joust, London are going to be better. I'm saying, from the games that we've watched, which might be a difference in terms of, how we're defining
if
stuff.
Justice take literally just 1 more map from either of those teams, they're inherently a better team than Spitfire.
Probably,
exactly.
For sure.
But I also think that I don't think it's too. The thing is, I do tend to be quite recency biased and immediate reactions to stuff. But when there's only 16 games in a season and 4 in a stage, if you fucked up 2 of them that immensely, you've crushed a sizable portion of the season, 1/8 of the season, boom, gone.
Bro.
And it's not just that, it's that if they lose the match coming up against the Shock, they are out of the June Joust and cannot gain those extra points. And this is massive for them going towards the end of the season already.
Get this. This team started out 4-0. If they lose in a 3-0 fashion to the Shock, which I think we can definitely say could happen.
Yeah.
their map count would go down to 0, and they're 4-3, staring down the barrel.
And they've just thrown it away. They've thrown it away. The lead that they got, you know?
That's like 4-0 start.
That to me,
Sideshow,
like,
I think your
worrying.
power rankings variable is very reasonable. Like, you're very reactionary, very quick about it, changing positions. I think that is reasonable. You know, it's very subjective whether we want to have like a more stable one or more reactionary one. I don't dismiss that kind of power ranking approach, but I think, especially given hero pool, and it was the first week, I don't think that applies as much because I don't really put too much weight into week 1 performances because of that.
But off of talent alone, they should be able to beat a team like the Paris Eternal.
And that's what makes me very worried.
But also,
I
actually don't even disagree.
That's not great for them.
I don't even agree with that. No.
Really?
Nope. Don't.
Really?
Don't agree with that.
Why do you?
I think their backline's not very good.
You think their backline is significantly, or not significantly worse? I guess it would just have to be comparative.
I think it's just comparative enough to where I think Eternal. Not in terms of like.
I mean, Paris are running Dreedro like for the first time.
I think people are. It's not even about Paris. I think Paris Eternal players are still like, those are all players that theoretically in the right spot could be mid-table. And in addition, that's how I personally feel about them. And also, it doesn't even matter because even if they're lower than mid-table, they just have such a good grasp of the meta and SF is such a good echo player.
Yeah, Naga's fantastic.
Like, that's why to me, like Justice, none of these players have proven, like, how many of those players besides Decay have proven anything? And Fury, Decay and Fury, what players have proven anything really?
I guess
Closer, but was Closer playing for London Spitfire when they won the league, or was that Nuss?
Yes, that was Nuss, but Closer was. I mean,
he was on the roster though.
He was on the roster.
Yeah,
I was on Boston. We went 10-0. So I mean, like the point being is that like.
But Closer, I think Closer was playing for them.
No,
when
and
they won
also
the first stage final.
He's also good. But the point being.
But I mean, Mag has proven things within the contenders,
but not in Overwatch League.
But much more than any of the Paris Eternal players have.
Sure, but also once again, like I don't really care about contenders.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, if you don't care about it, then it doesn't count. But
you think that, like, their loss to Boston, that like they don't have enough talent that they should be able. I mean, they didn't get a point on Lijiang Tower. They took the payload on Hollywood. And then they didn't even get the first point on Junkertown. They're basically not even existent in the series. That their talent is so low that even off the base of the talent, they wouldn't be able to hang with just Boston, even in a meta that's not.
I mean,
theirs.
also I mean, it doesn't have nothing to do with their talent. I think Boston's talent's pretty good too. Boston's such a better team that there's talented players in the Vancouver Titans. They just don't know how to play Overwatch. Like it literally. That's just my personal belief. I don't think this is a talent. I think talent only carries you is only a good comparison when it comes to like where you are in the meta, right? But if you simply have no idea what the hell you're doing, your talent doesn't matter. Yeah, but also London has no idea what the hell they're doing, and they don't have that much talent. While Justice has no idea what they're doing, and they do have talent. So like that's the whole crux of the issue.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's move on to the APAC power rankings because we went on a wild tangent there.
Should be easy, yeah.
APAC is a fucking clusterfuck. I mean, it was that.
I know. I'm kidding.
I don't know what the hell to do with these teams. I want to kind of start at the bottom. I mean, Valiant look like the worst team still. They've
got that spot on lock.
That's fair.
They've locked that shit up. Who is at the top right now? Shanghai.
I'd say Shanghai.
Yeah. Got to be Dragons after their win over Seoul,
They beat Chengdu and they beat Seoul.
Yeah.
And they also beat,
the team that I'm finding it hard to place are Spark and Charge. Because it feels like Spark got a lot of early success. But then, am I right in saying that we haven't seen them play all of their games so far?
They played week 1. They had incredible identity in week 1, looked solid, had a good composition, but I don't know how it carries over.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do about that? It's kind of the opposite scenario to the Justice, I suppose, where they look amazing coming straight out of the gate, but you don't exactly know whether they're going to be able to keep it up. I feel like you have to power rank them highly.
Oh, no, they beat Dragons, right? No,
Spark did,
Spark,
yes.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So, Spark ends up playing, they'll play Valiant and they'll play Chengdu.
You could make the argument that Spark should be rated number 1, but
they're either 1 or 2 for me.
Yeah, I'd probably say 2. I'd still probably have some more faith in Shanghai, even though the Spark. I mean, dude, the Spark 3-0'd them too.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, actually, I'm a Spark simp through and through. Put Spark number 1.
Yeah, maybe the Spark should be 1 right now. Yeah.
They looked really good. Like Shai's Echo was fantastic. They targeted Lee Jae-gon. Lee Jae-gon was just inting in that match.
Put the finger bangs
Shanghai
number one.
hadn't figured it out.
Yeah. Definitely Spark.
Spark looked really good.
Yeah.
I think this is a very similar situation though to like
Dragoons
Justice,
too?
where Spark could come out and look significantly worse than week one. Justice could come out and look significantly better, and these might change dramatically.
I mean, how does a Winston Reaper kind of brawl composition, how does that age in this hero pool? Like, we don't know, but I don't expect them to age very well.
I think Dynasty 3 charge 4.
Dynasty 3 charge 4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
What about New York?
No.
I think Charge has looked better than New York, haven't they?
No, New York looks bad. Charge has some.
Yeah, New York's 2-2, but
Charge looks decent. Yeah. I might even put them above Seoul, almost.
I don't think I'd put them. I don't know if I'd put them. Well,
what did they do? So the Guangzhou Charge lost to Spark.
Charge,
and then they beat.
I'll tell you right now.
They beat New York.
They beat New York. Are there any other results I'm forgetting about?
No, those are just the two. They've only played two, and they're playing this weekend 2 matches.
They
play Philly. They play Philly and Seoul this week.
And also, you have to remember, Charge has obviously new meta, right? New meta. But when we take two teams in juxtaposition that have, I think, very similar performances, and we're also in a chaotic meta right now, Dynasty thrives in that. I don't think Charge has shown that they can thrive in chaos.
Yeah, I worry, though, that as the meta becomes a little more defined, the Seoul Dynasty might lose their grip on reality.
But we're doing it next week, not later on.
Yeah. So I think that feels fair. I feel like Seoul might trend downwards, though, in a similar manner to like Atlanta.
Yeah, I will say that I like the Guangzhou Charge right now. They're like one of my dark horse going into the knockout matches and stuff like that. Because I think that from the looks of it, they play this echo composition too, but they're actually pretty proactive in fights, and they decide early on if they want to engage or disengage. Karib looked fantastic on the Ana. His biotic grenades were insane. Choice one, really fulfilling the potential that I talked about going into the season, where he can either play really aggressive and play well, or he can just kind of like peel backwards and play slow, depending on his resource management. So I like the Guangzhou Charge. I think they look really solid. They're like New York Excelsior, where they play a lot of default stuff, but they look a lot better and more adverse in like play style.
I put Hunters next.
So I like them.
Okay.
Hunters, New York. What do you do with Philly?
Hunters ahead of NYXL.
Yeah.
What did the Hunters do this week?
Hunters beat New York and or Hunters, I should say, they lost to who did they lose to? They lost to somebody. They lost to Dragons and they beat Philly.
Yeah. Philly's hard to place.
I mean, Philly lost to New York and Chengdu.
Yeah, I know.
Philly's not that hard to place.
I mean, it feels, it's like a Washington scenario again, where it feels like
put them right there.
Also, it feels like they shouldn't be that low, but they are.
Some of these matches are going to be extra hype because this is the Hangzhou homestand.
Oh, is it really?
This week. Yeah, so Hangzhou is going to play Chengdu in Hangzhou.
That's sick. Wow. Yes. I mean, they might have peaked at the perfect time to just get some dubs for the crowd. That's wild. That's going to be extremely sick. I might want to tune into those
Fusion, I think 7 is like Johnny loves Rascal. I think his Echo play is just not where it needs to be currently.
I was not impressed with his Echo play at all. Disappointing.
I even wonder, I know, when did EQO enter quarantine? Was that last week or 2 weeks ago now?
It was at least a week ago. At least a week.
Okay.
He should be available
so who knows?
At some point.
Yeah, I mean, he may even be available, so.
What did New York do this week? I know that they had that
they beat the Valiant.
Dominant win over the Valiant. Or maybe not this week, but just in the total of the June Joust. I thought they had another win, didn't they?
No, they didn't. They lost 3-1.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, no, what?
They beat Philly.
Oh,
they beat Philly, and they beat the Valiant. And they lost to they lost to
Charge and Seoul.
Charge and Dynasty, yeah.
And they looked, I also tried to see that a bit because I was like, what the hell is happening here after they beat Philly? And I went and like, they just look insanely disconnected at all angles.
Yakpung looks like Yakpung, like they Toronto Yakpung, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I feel reasonably happy about those. We'll see how that adjusts as we head deeper into the June Joust. It's time for some of Plat Chat's classic top 5 matches of the week, which aren't actually top 5 matches, they're top 6 matches. So, we can't count, but we are going to give you entertainment whenever we can and bold predictions. We'll see how bold, I guess. The first match of the week is the Boston Uprising against the Los Angeles Gladiators. And, okay, we've got the Boston Uprising pick here for Mr.X Morello. Everybody else going with the Gladiators.
I messaged Kurt my predictions because I changed some of my predictions. And this one I actually had as the Gladiators as well. I'll argue for Boston.
Wait.
I think this happens to Matt the most, by the way.
Why do you submit one series of predictions and then decide to go against yourself before the show?
Because Kurt will take them from the website, which I did have the Boston Uprising winning.
Right.
Until I saw the Gladiators play this week, and then I changed it.
Oh, you do yours like way in advance. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, so why did you believe in Boston?
Because I really like the way that they looked in the first week of play. I think Gilbolshi added a ton to the team. And I think Valentine's Echo is pretty fucking sick. Where I thought this team was actually playing a lot of the Winston stuff. They were playing more like Winston Zarya compositions than like what we've seen as of late. But I still really like Myungbong is still really strong. Like I actually still think there's a chance that Boston wins this series, to be honest.
Boston historically have done well against the Gladiators.
Yeah,
I know that's like some voodoo shit where it's just the franchises
and they were
absolutely
they were just absolutely shit in the May Melee. But I don't think any of us expected Boston to be that shit the whole year. Where I think Gilbolshi's made a big impact, at least in that first week. So I think this is going to be a really close game, regardless who wins.
This also essentially defines who ends up on top. I mean, both teams play against Paris, but you would favor them both against Paris, although maybe slightly, because Paris could still be a damn good game as well.
Yeah, but whoever wins this may end up with one of the top 2 seeds in the June Joust.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
That's a massive match. Be in that position.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next match that we have coming up is the Florida Mayhem against the Washington Justice. And we're all going with Mayhem.
I mean, is there anything to say here?
Well, the question I want to pose to you is, how close do you think this game will be? Do you guys actually believe in the Justice bounce back?
I'm going to go on a limb. I think this is not going to be close at all. I think it's going to be a 3-0 or a 3-1 potentially for the Florida Mayhem.
Please just feel Decay.
I don't even know if Decay is really even the answer there. I don't feel great about the supports for the Justice. I think after the Mayhem beat them in the Melee and just kind of seeing how like odd the Justice had played during that, I think other teams have kind of seen that, and to lose in the fashion that they did, in the first week, I think there's a lot more issues with this team than kind of meets the eye. So I'm going to go with Florida in a big way.
I think it should
see
be
this turn it.
Go ahead, Johnny. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think this could be closer than people think. I could see both of these teams just like Echo Reaper style it. Almost like a flashback to Dallas Fuel, Washington Justice and May Melee, where just like ego dueled on Winston for like the entire match. I feel like both teams could do this here too. And if Decay plays Echo, and then you have like fucking Jerry play the Reaper, then I don't know. I could see this be close. I could definitely see the Washington Justice look a lot better if they decide to play like just an all-out kind of GOATs Winston comp. And I think they actually have the players to be able to pull that off. Bebe play for Hangzhou Spark, that we underrate their 2019 was performance. Closer, sure, might not be the most historically accoladed loser in the world, but I think they could pull it off if they came in decisive and actually play with some pace and fuck you energy. But Decay needs to be there because it's not happening with
playing what? Yeah. Reaper.
If they want to play the Echo Reaper Rush, that we saw Dallas and Shock pull off. I could see them.
I don't believe that Decay's Reaper is going to be the thing that
the Echo. You
Decay
moron.
Plays Echo, not Reaper in this.
Oh,
scenario.
You want Decay to play Echo?
Holy shit! This potato brain, man.
No, I lowered my volume once you started to speak, so I didn't really hear.
I agree with Johnny, by the way. But it could be close. Justice shouldn't be that bad, but they look really rough. So.
Okay, let's move on to our third match of the week. It is the Paris Eternal playing against the Los Angeles Gladiators. This, again, is going to be one of those matches that potentially defines whether Gladiators has a perfect record, and we've all gone with the Gladiators as well. I do think, though, that I believe in Paris. I don't believe in them enough to predict them, but I believe that they can get better throughout the June Joust and have a puncher's chance at being able to beat some of the to be able to take them out.
These are all good matches. We might look one-sided, but they're all good matches, I think.
Yeah,
for the most part.
It's not like this week where they all just look.
They won't be speedrun competitions. I'll tell you that.
Hopefully,
I mean,
yeah. All right,
maybe a few, but
we already discussed quite a lot of this game, so let's move on to the next one. It is the Guangzhou Charge against the Philadelphia Fusion, straying into APAC territory for this wild. Wow. Okay, so holy moly, I'm the only person that predicted the Guangzhou Charge. The rest of you went with the Philadelphia Fusion. And the Philadelphia Fusion have been booty butt cheeks recently. Yeah. And Guangzhou have been doing well. Is this, again, history? Have I got some fucking historians on my podcast?
No.
You all just harking back to better times? What the fuck is going on here? Why do you believe?
Who wants to go first? Who wants to be? Let Johnny. Johnny, you've been much more of a Fusion.
Yeah, Johnny will go
Jonathan.
first.
Jonathan was a Guangzhou simp. He said they're one of his dark horses heading into the tournament, and he's spreading the Fusion.
This might be the one I flip. I think the Philly Fusion have gone into like there should be a mode for this where they're like, oh fuck, we're 0-2. Just like, fuck it, throw everything out the window. And I pray that they will come out and play some Orisa compositions and poo on Guangzhou Charges, Winston Echo efforts. But I'm just betting on that, and I don't feel good about it.
Yeah. No.
Said with your chest. A lot of confidence in that one.
The thing is, sometimes you make these predictions and you haven't like gone through a full podcast beforehand. But legitimately though, if I am going to be honest and like not put up a little bit of like the wishy-washy stuff, I do think Fusion showed flashes of brilliance and they looked very, very rough, but it wasn't, to me, like I wasn't watching a team that was playing really, really poorly. I was watching a team that was in the middle of learning the meta, and they had a player on a role that didn't seem entirely comfortable for them yet at the time. With Rascal's Echo.
With Rascal's Echo.
Right. And the working around Echo specifically.
Right, yeah.
So I do think that this team, and who knows, maybe VQO is there, that changes something even more, right?
That definitely could, yeah, absolutely.
So for me, at least, I look at this team and I think time will fix them, hopefully. Because also, I came into this year and I had Charge pretty high on my list. But what I've seen from them so far, it's not good. Obviously, this stage, they're looking a lot better. But I think it is current 1 week meta woes and not so much Charge necessarily being the overall better team. So I believe in Fusion overall to just take some time, figure it out. And Charge will probably still have like a decent grasp of the meta, and so it should be close. But I think Fusion should come out ahead.
Okay. Matt, anything different?
No, I kind of agree with Avast. I think even though I said that I don't think Rascal's like one of the best echoes we currently have in the league, I gotta believe that Philly bounces back, and I'm not as high on Guangzhou as like Johnny is. I also just looked. Decay has never played Echo in the Overwatch League, so I don't know why Decay would be in on Echo, but that's another point.
He'll pull it off, yeah. Fine. I will say before we leave this one that I think Philly is the upset pick, and I'm just going with my small brain upset pick here. So.
Okay, all right, upset brain. Let's move on to another Guangzhou Charge game against the Seoul Dynasty.
Brain.
If any of you have believed in Guangzhou. Okay, so Matt predicts Guangzhou, the rest of us predict Seoul. So let me get this
I never
straight.
picked Seoul Dynasty. I never picked Seoul Dynasty. There's a thing I just don't believe. I've been screwed too many times by Seoul Dynasty. They'll come out and they'll play Gesture on the Roadhog. He'll be fucking drunk off a bottle of soju, and the Guangzhou Charge win.
Okay, and that is the basis of your analysis.
Yes.
To be fair, I actually don't even hate that much because that Dynasty could do that. They really could. So
yeah, they could just come out and just wander around the map on Roadhog. Marvel fucking flying around on Diva to you, just nowhere to be found.
No, they absolutely could. I think this is going to be a really close game.
I don't trust this team at all. I don't even like Guangzhou that much.
All right, okay, that's a phenomenal situation. We have one final game to go through, and it is the San Francisco Shock against the Washington Justice. And boy, oh boy, we've talked about this earlier. And we've all gone with the Shock. in pounding fashion, perhaps?
Yeah, probably pounding fashion.
You think they would take Assassin off of the Echo?
I think Johnny's arguing this more from the fact that Decay is such a crucial player to have in game.
I think Johnny may have forgot that Assassin is on the team.
That is correct, yes.
But, I mean...
Which is weird, because I've been like the assassin simp on the desk, and I've been like, his doofus is incredible.
It makes more sense for him to come in and play the Reaper over like Jerry than to come in and play Echo, which he's never played before, and then Assassin plays Reaper where he's never played the Reaper before.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, let Decay fuck. In whatever fashion it is, just let him fuck.
I don't think he...
Let Decay play main tank for the Washington Justice over Mag, the most hyped main tank rookie coming in.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that whoever's calling for the Justice, that's their biggest problem. Like, the style that they have opted to play for, this incredibly slow-paced, really trying to, like, I don't know, like, focus massively on positioning before the fight, but then they're too slow, and they just end up getting caught out because they're not playing with enough.
It literally was Washington against the Justice in that Vancouver matchup because of the reasons you exactly outlined. It was Washington versus the Justice.
Yeah, in the Vancouver matchup.
Yeah, when they lost that Temple of Anubis and then they almost lost Blizzard World.
Oh,
it was Washington versus Justice.
Right. Sorry, I thought you were talking about a recent game as well. Yeah, okay. So that sums things up. Our final segment here, our final little part that we've got is Bren's Player of the Week, presented, of course, by T-Mobile.
Woo! Yeah!
And now I have to think of one, because I didn't think of one previously. So, I think, though... I think I'm going to give it...
Stall.
No, I think I have somebody to give it to here. But again, it's going to be an unusual pick. I'm not going to go for somebody who was the best player of the week because, you know, why would I do that?
Have we had usual picks for the player of the week sent at all recently?
No.
I don't think we have.
There was one, wasn't there? Maybe.
Who's Bren's Player of the Week presented by T-Mobile?
Bren's Player of the Week presented by T-Mobile is Glister. He has returned from wherever the hell they were keeping him. In a basement, in a bucket, in a barrel, I don't know. But they've retrieved Glister. He got fielded only in week 1. And even though his first showing was rough, it was absolutely rough against Aspire on Junkertown, what I like is that they believed in him enough to field him again multiple times in multiple maps throughout their next series and in that one as well. And he had opportunities to redeem himself, and he did, in fact, redeem himself, I think. And yeah, we haven't seen him go toe-to-toe with a top-tier hit scan and dominate them. So I'm not saying that he's like Ants come back to life. Come back to life? Ants isn't dead. But Ants like embodying his...
Reincarnated.
Well, no, because that also implies he's dead, Matt. You can't be reincarnated while still being alive.
Reborn.
No, reborn
is the word I want.
You could, because you could like come out and like be you can be a reborn like follower of
I guess
faith,
what I meant was
resurrected,
possessed by the spirit
resurrected
of
makes
Ants.
less sense, Matt. That makes less sense than reborn. Just stop.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, even though we haven't seen him go toe-to-toe with a top-level hit scan, I think the fact that he was able to still play really well and hit nutty shots when he was given the space to do so gives me some confidence. I hope it gave him some confidence as well, because I also think he's crucial to the DPS rotation on the Shock. And you've got to have a scenario where you can field him, otherwise the Shock just simply can't cover all their bases this year. So there you go. Glister gets Bren's Player of the Week presented by T-Mobile.
You could have given it to Aspire for coming in and popping off.
I could have as well.
But Glister won. Glister actually won.
Yeah.
Glister actually won, but did Aspire really win?
No, because he's only on a 30-day contract, so he didn't get that money.
But what if he gets the contract extended?
Well, then he will have won, and he will potentially win Bren's Player of the Week again. Then
that's fair.
So. Anyway, that does it for a mammoth episode, actually, of Plat Chat. There's episode 89.
This was supposed to be a quick one.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a quick one, but the problem is whenever we start talking, we can't stop talking. It's an issue if we weren't podcast hosts. But
are you gonna
have this dumb fucking Washington-London argument for 45 minutes? Maybe I wouldn't have.
To be fair, we did. Yeah, we spent so much time.
We spent too much.
We spent a ridiculous amount of time.
So are you gonna stay there now and be live all the time?
No, I'm going back. I am journeying back to my house after this.
Are you just gonna come? Are you just gonna drive down every Monday?
Every week to Austin to do Plat Chat? Probably not. Though,
why not?
If we do more,
what if we got enough members that they paid for an Uber every time?
The thing is, if they paid for like my gas.
We literally can't have members yet.
Oh yeah, we haven't activated
process.
members on this channel. Actually, I've forgotten about that.
Pretty much,
you
but
can't
I'm sure
be
I'll
members
down here during the year at other points now because of like other things we're doing with Plat Chat and stuff. So I'm sure I'll be back down here.
Well, it's been very pleasant having you. I'm sure the people enjoyed it.
What's
as well.
been your best thing about being there?
Wondering how Bren and Josh continue to survive in this life is like the number one thing. It's like seeing being David Attenborough and watching life and watching nature.
Whenever I see Bren on the Overwatch League broadcast, it looks like he's aged like 10 years in the pandemic. I mean, he looks old.
You're just gonna. What do you mean?
He's not here to defend himself.
He's just taking him out, man.
These are our closing statements of episode 89.
This is coming from a guy
with a right hook.
That is at the bottom of his webcam all the time.
You are a little.
Are you shrinking?
You're a little dumpling with no neck. You have no neck. You are just a floating head in a green sphere. Yeah, or a green cube. It's wild. The more you speak, the further down you go until only what's left is just a head peering up above the table.
Like your fucking hairline
5'11", 6 foot. 5'11", 6 foot.
All right,
there we go.
We'll see you guys for episode 90 next week.
Bye-bye.
Before we go, we have to have something to comment about.
Before we go,
yeah.
what do I have to comment about? Avast,
do you guys want us to turn on memberships?
Do you want us to turn on membership?
We're doing it anyway.
No. Comment below whether what are your thoughts on Justice versus London debate? Comment below there.
Did you skip that part? Go back and watch it.
Give your thoughts.
Okay.
We're gonna put an ad right before that part so you'll know exactly where it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna fall over right now. So can we?
Please end.